Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. I'm Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Happy Friday. We're here live on April 11th, 2025, doing full moon in Libra readings. I am taking your guys' questions and I am going to be pulling up the chart live on the channel and giving you guys my thoughts and my insight on what you have going on. So if you guys can see me, give me a thumbs up, say hello. Make sure that you let me know where you're tuning in from. I'd like to hear where you guys are watching from. And happy almost full moon. Everybody's probably gonna be feeling a little feral tonight, so I'm sure it'll be some really interesting questions and stories. We have a ton of people. Two things right off the top. Number one is readings are closed. So you guys gotta be quick. We do always post these usually on Friday mornings, so you guys can sign up through my community tab. It does pay to subscribe to the channel, so hit the bell button below, subscribe, so you guys can catch me on the next live. But once we hit like 20 people, that is the max for me. I can only be here for so long. So if I missed you, hopefully I can catch you guys on another Friday. We alternate between every other Friday, tarot or astrology. And then number two is we're live on the 11th. So if you're watching this on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I'm no longer live. Please don't send any donations for readings. Otherwise, you will be refunded. And there is a cool ticker right along the bottom of the screen. So if you see your name on there, that means that we have you. We have gotten your donation for your reading. Oh my goodness, there are so many people in the chat. I'm just going to say a big hello to everybody. Listening from Maryland, Dorothy's here, Rosie's here, what's up? Enchanted, hey Druidus, Golden Sun, what's up everybody? I'm just gonna say hi to everybody. Eve, Lisa, Christine, Deanna. So we've got a lot of people who are level 3 who are cashing in today. So if you have a green colored screen name, that means you're one of my channel members. Thank you guys so much for supporting my work. Those of you guys who don't know, I'm a full-time content creator, so I put out 4 videos a week. I put a lot of time and energy and love. We're also a 2-person team that runs this YouTube channel. And yeah, if you guys want to join my memberships, you should. There's 3 different levels if you want to support my work. I create long format educational information on astrology, world events, what's kind of going on, and lots of horoscopes, new and full moon reports, and all kinds of stuff in between. So if you become a level 3 member, you don't have to wait in line. We take the level 3 people first on Fridays. You guys can have 1 tarot or astrology reading per month. And everybody else in the queue is going to follow up after that bunch. My goodness, the astrology has just been giving. Live chat is blowing up. The readings are already closed. It's not always like that, but once we hit a certain number, once we have so many people, it's going on like what'll be 2 or 3 hours worth of readings. So if I missed you guys, I'm sorry. Hopefully I can get you next time. We have a number of people who are in level 3. We've also got a number of people who are just here to get readings. So if this is your first time getting a reading, say hello, introduce yourself. We'd love to hear from you. I'm just pulling up my notes here. So level 3 people that we have: Deanna, Christine, Lisa, Enchanted, Stacy, Dorothy, and Golden Sun. And then for the queue for everybody who sent payments through PayPal, or if you guys sent a super chat, I've got Eve who's got questions about synastry. Rome, I got your payment, thank you. Lula, Jessica, Matt, Stacy, Katie. We've got Nay in the Bay, Matt V. We've got Robin, Amanda, Maritza, Corey, and Abigail. So really quick, Abigail, can you confirm your information? I saw somebody send something from Australia. I don't know if that's confessions, but if it is, let me know. I do need your birth information, and also you're asking questions about your relationship, and you sent money for a synastry reading. So do me a favor, confirm your birth details, and then send whatever you have of your partner. So if you have just their birthday, send your birthday. If you have their birth time and their location, send that too, so I can take a look. And then Robin, can you confirm your birth details for me, please? Yes, I got your Venmo, Rome. Thank you. I was like, how did he find me? Sorry, SR. Your birthday today, I might be able to make an exception for that. So if you want me to put you in there, I can put you in there. Just let me know. But we're not going to be taking any more other than that. So if you do want to send payment over with your question. Otherwise, if you guys don't ask a question, I'm going to talk about what's going on with the full moon in Libra, which is tomorrow. Kind of a big deal. We've got a full moon that was seeded 6 months ago that was a solar eclipse in Libra. Obviously, this is kind of the conclusion and the completion of that. Venus is going direct just shortly after the full moon tomorrow as well, which is a big deal because there's big kind of karmic decisions being made with relationships, diplomacy, money, love, all that stuff. And then also something else I was looking at that I didn't really catch until recently. This particular full moon is right around the same degree of where we had a solar eclipse in the fall of 2023. I think we had like a 22-degree solar eclipse in Libra. So just some food for thought, you know. Anyway, sorry guys, you gotta be quick. But we always post it early, so check it on Friday mornings if you guys are subscribed. For more information about me, if you want to book a personal reading with me, if you want me to teach you how to read charts or natal charts or use prediction methods, I teach astrology, okay? I've got 2 different levels. I've got an Astro 101, which is going to teach you basically everything you need to know about reading a natal horoscope, a birth chart, all the aspects, the signs, the planets, the houses, the way that I read, applying the degree theory and also lots of tricks and stuff. And then we have Astro 201, which I'm going to teach you transits, solar returns, lunar returns, some synastry aspects, planning, and how to actually apply a lot of predictive methods so that way you can do what I do to kind of know what's going on in the stars. For all of that, my products, my digital calendars, which are on sale, and much more, check out beyondtheveiltarot.com. Click the links below in the description. I also have a book list where all of the books and the tarot cards and stuff that I use on my channel is there. There's a cool Amazon store too with lots of recommendations, all that good stuff. So can we just make a note of confessions for the synastry reading? If that is confessions, I need your birth information and your partner's as well. So I'm looking specifically for Robin and Abigail. Okay, those are the 2 people whose info I need. So as we get closer, I will be putting up the readings, and then you'll hear me call out names. So if I'm calling out your name, that means that you're basically on deck for a reading. Hey, can we make a note of that information so I don't lose it? Because that's going to be towards the end for confessions. All right. So we're going to get started first with Deanna, Christine, and then Lisa. And if you guys are hanging around for your reading as long as you can, but you can't, you can come back to this reading. So when it's no longer live, you just want to scan ahead and you'll see your name kind of pop up with the chart on the screen. Also, you can leave me feedback. Come back to these readings at a later date. Let me know what kind of plays out and what happens. What's up, Glander? It's Kimberly. All right, so let's take a look here. We're going to start with Deanna. And Deanna is a level 3 member. What's up, girl? She says, I'm cashing in. We've got your birth info. She's a Leo rising with a sun in Capricorn and a moon in Libra. She says, this moon is conjunct my moon and opposing Chiron. I want to break free from everything. Help me. How do I navigate this next month or so? So let's pull it up. Let's take a look at this full moon that's coming up here on the 12th. So it's not just a full moon. It's also, you know, something to think about is like when you have a new moon or a full moon that's taking place in aspect to your natal moon, that's going to be really important, right? So full moon, conclusions, completions, major kind of developments, and also some kind of like fruit that's kind of coming from whatever has been seeded over the last like 6 months or so. So that will be baked into what will be your lunar return. So that means that, you know, sometimes we have a full moon. Things don't always hit right on the full moon. It can be within 2 weeks on either side of the full moon that we see the effects of it. But for you, this is a part of your lunar return, okay? So that means actually you're going to be dealing with these polarities all month long. So full moon on top of your natal moon, we take into consideration, well, what is the moon rule for a Leo rising, the 12th house? Maybe, you know, emotions that are now coming to the surface, shifts with your dreams, things that are kind of concluding or completing, obviously in the themes of relationships, all right? But this is more like relationship communication. It's like, okay, let's have some definitive conversations about what we're doing. Where are we going? What is the plan? Simultaneously, it's very close to your Pluto. So it does mean that there is some kind of intensity about relationships, communication, planning, maybe traveling, maybe moving, and how that applies to, really kind of getting to the bottom of the details with home and kind of family life. This full moon is gnarly because it opposes Chiron. Okay, so it's going to teach us, and if you guys haven't seen my full moon video in Libra, you should check it out. But it really teaches us where if we on a personal level are struggling and we're going through some, season of wounding, whether that's emotionally, financially, physically, whatever, there's something that we are in relation to that we might kind of feel like is not supporting us or is making us feel alienated. Chiron can be about separation or isolation. And when we're not 100%, it's harder for us to partner and kind of like work with another person. So this is going to be about either healing the self to better show up in relationships for other people, or it's going to be about how we can kind of fill in, the gaps where we feel like sometimes other people can't pick up the slack and we're like, it's okay, I've got you. And that's a part of like the teamwork of Libra. Challenge is that it squares Mars, okay? And the challenge is also that this is at a 23. So it's going to be bringing up, a major turning point. Suddenly we're going to feel like things are going to speed up. 23 is connected to Uranus. So this is going to be make or break conversations relating to the future dynamics of a relationship. I think that I would be really careful with communication, knowing that Mars is the focal point of the T-square. Like if you're really sensitive, if you're really emotional, if you're crabby, if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're stressed out, you're worried about things, then this is not the time to be pressing conversation or ideas or commitments or even planning or traveling or anything like that. And Mars, when it's in the 12th house, can be very temperamental, especially when it's in Cancer. Like there can be this sense of you going, well, I haven't healed yet, or I'm not ready yet, or I haven't made up my mind yet, or I need time to be able to kind of work through some stuff. So yeah, you just need to kind of pace yourself. And as a Capricorn, it's 10 signs away from your sun. So it's bringing up some kind of responsibility. So you might be struggling with feeling like, well, why am I the person who has to have these conversations or bring these conversations up? Why does it have to be me that's initiating them? Why do I have to be the one to, always be kind of like running the show in terms of like making plans? It definitely also has this very career connection. So like a full moon in the 3rd house, 10th house from your sun could mean I'm making a big public announcement. I am possibly getting ready to launch a website. I am thinking about, signing a work contract. So there is some seriousness to this. Pros, because there are pros, is that Venus is stationing, during this particular full moon. And when a planet is stationing, the impact of that planet feels like it's either coming on or going offline. So Venus going direct means, hey, we're going to be actually trying to figure out, making sense, making commitments. And Venus is in your 8th house, so it's going to be about like intimacy, discussing things that might feel uncomfortable. It might provide some emotional or psychological breakthroughs. Venus obviously conjunct Saturn, your 7th house ruler, is a lot of like you going, all right, is somebody else going to catch me if I fall? And that could be emotionally supporting you. That could be financially, do they have your back? That's also like, hey, if this happens, worst case scenario, can I depend on you? And I feel like, with Venus trine Mars and, Saturn trine Mars, I feel like this is really kind of saying it's like this subconscious clearing out that's going on. I would be taking hot baths. I would be, soaking anything that's going to help release emotions. And also keep an eye on your lungs. The 3rd house is breathing. So when you have a full moon and the moon's connected to healing and Mars is in the 12th house, which can be about not getting enough sleep, feeling very emotional, breath work can be helpful, working with steam or maybe like using like hot oils or anything like that. So you're not feeling like the trapped emotions are materializing as you having issues like breathing or getting sick, right? I definitely feel like things are coming back online. I'm telling you, and I talk about this in the Astro Weather on Sunday, like everything's so much better in May. Like we're gonna realize just like how chaotic March and April was, and that a lot of us have been like really, really, really kind of like overreacting to things. So I feel like, yeah, this is a matter of you going, if it's not the right time to have a conversation, maybe the full moon in Libra is saying it's time to sit down and journal about it or write a letter, put something, on paper so that way you can start working through it so you can really refine what it is you do want to say and, the conversations you want to have and maybe create some some kind of points and sit with it for a little bit until you feel like it's the right time. Part of me also feels inclined to tell you that, at some point when Mars comes back into Leo, which is going to be in this next week, it's going to start dancing with an opposition of Pluto. And Pluto is in your whole sign 7th. So there is going to be this definitive turning point that's about how you're, getting on board with having conversations about what it is that you want, where you're going, what your goals are, what your plans are, in contrast to other people. So that could be a romantic relationship, that could be a client, that could be a friend. So I kind of look at this and I'm like, ooh, a lot of Leo risings are having a little bit of anxiety with this moon because they're feeling like, I know I have to have a conversation with somebody, I just don't know how to do it yet. Just pace yourself. You don't need to have the conversation yet, but inevitably that is going to be coming up throughout the month for you, right? Hopefully that's helpful in kind of giving you some insight, sending you lots of good vibes. Obviously your Mars return is coming up here soon too, like in this next month. So I think that that's also going to give you the much needed kind of boost that you need to feel a little bit more action oriented and be willing to also embrace change, because Mars starting its retrograde actually in conjunction to your natal Mars, and your Mars is retrograde in your natal chart. So you can kind of navigate this energy a little bit better maybe than most people. And maybe, it's a matter of looking at things going like, I know the change has to happen subconsciously, or I have to be meditating on embracing change or overcoming fear. And Mars in the 12th house is very brave. But it's a lot of tapping into accepting that and knowing that whatever is coming, like you're going to be able to kind of rise to the occasion, right? And it can be fun. It can be exciting. You can also get creative with some of the ways that you're going to be making changes in your home, in your love life, also when it comes to teaching, educating, and traveling. Hopefully that's helpful. Thanks, SR. I got you. I'm going to put you in after Golden Sun. All right, so next up we have Christine, Lisa, and then Enchanted. There we go for Christine. Scorpio rising, sun in Leo, and your moon is in Capricorn. Let's see what Christine has to say. 726, yeah. All right, I'd like to know what is coming up for me in my next solar return. What are the major themes that you notice? Where is it that you live currently? I'll give you like the crash course because it takes quite a bit of time to do a solar return, but I would be curious where you live, unless you want me to do it from your natal location. Sacramento. Okay. Turn. All right, so this will be the solar return for 2025. So this gives you a Libra rising with the sun in Leo, obviously solar return, it's your birthday. And then the moon is also going to be in Leo. So, I approach this very similar to kind of how I look at a natal chart. So I'm going to go and look at what's happening, first of all, with the chart ruler. Then I'm going to look at the sun next because it's your solar return and the aspects that are going on with this chart, girl. So you got Libra rising at a 6. So this means that you're really focusing on getting into better, healthier habits when it comes to relationships, okay? Could be your relationship to your body, your relationship to your routine, your relationship to your job, right? Anything like that. And this is ruled by Venus. So if you look at this chart, Venus is located in Gemini and it's in the 9th house. So I look at this as at a 24, you're learning a lot about health and wellness, right? Maybe there is love at a distance. Maybe luxury and comfort and beauty is found in traveling, in, bettering yourself, taking on a new teacher or a guru. Venus in the 9th can be a year where there's graduations. It could be literal or figurative. It could also mean that you're traveling more, and at a 24, it can mean that you are taking on much more of like a spiritual practice. So think like meditation, hypnosis, wellness, maybe breath work, yoga, like that kind of stuff. And I would be keeping my eyes out for like Geminis or Pisces or Sagittarius people who are going to be kind of coming into your life that are going to be teaching you, who might be also teaching you about the bigger meaning of life, because that's really what the 9th house is about. She says, I've been working out more and learning how to work out correctly and eating better health habits the past few weeks. There you go. So you might be on it a little bit early, but that's going to be really significant. And if you look at this, it's slight, but the Venus does square the north and south node. So actually learning, Gemini, about health and wellness, because it squares the axis of the 12th and the 6th house, is important. You also have Venus square Mars, okay? So that means that you're either releasing like pent up frustration or agitation, or maybe there's some clearing out of old like karmic debris with relationships, or maybe that there is someone or something unexpectedly that kind of like leaves your life relationship wise, especially if it's not healthy relationship or work dynamics, because Mars rules your 7th of relationships, where Saturn and Neptune is kind of hovering. So it's kind of talking about boundaries with relationships. And obviously the North Node in the 6th house, healthier habits and routine. South Node in the 12th house, letting go of self-undoing tendencies and realizing maybe the influence that certain people or certain relationships have on you. It's also interesting, just looking at the sun, like this is a new moon phase. So your birthday is right after the new moon in Leo, which will be in opposition to Pluto. And Pluto's in the 4th house of changes on the home front, okay? But they might be physical changes, it's at a 2. Financial changes, changes revolving around how much money you're paying for your cost of living. There could be some structural changes going on at home. There might be you reevaluating, because Pluto is retrograde, you know, your emotions, your past, your family situation. That's a challenging aspect with the opposition to the sun. That tells me, obviously, I know you've got I think your sun's in your 9th house, Pluto is opposing. So it's very kind of like communication, learning, travel based. But this is saying that some of the drama that's kind of playing out in regards to the changes you're making internally versus kind of what's going on and how that's impacting your relationship with bosses, brothers, boyfriends, you know, husbands, you know, men in general, that's the sun, is playing out. And so a Pluto transit like this is going to last about 2 years. So you'll have it this year. You'll probably have it next year too. I look at this and I go, well, oppositions are relational. Something's got to give. It's either going to be you breaking with the past and making a change to old emotional or family or home dynamics. So that way you can like really thrive and you can have this fresh start when it comes to your goals for yourself, for your career, and this new identity that's emerging. You might feel like either home or work need to change in some way, shape, or form. And that can be family as well. The sun is sextiling the ascendant, which is nice. I mean, you know, this does lend to the 11th house, which is going to put an emphasis on new goals, new friends, community, and that may actually help you get into better kind of harmony with your relationship to yourself, or better balance. It can be a very social year with this new moon kind of going through the 11th house. And you do have support because Saturn and Neptune are trining your sun. Technically, it's in the 6th house. So it's like through action, dedication, commitment, persistence, wellness in the 6th house, and new habits and routine, really kind of blending together like responsibility and I think routine with vision, Neptune, and something that's kind of flow related. It's going to help you be more productive, feel more on top of the ball, more successful at work, you know, like that kind of stuff. And money-wise, you know, looks a little difficult. It looks difficult to me because your 2nd house ruler is connected to Pluto and it is connected to Mars. And both of these aspects are very challenged. On one hand, Pluto is in opposition to the sun, so it means that, you know, maybe changes in direction with your career might help provide for changes with your home, and that could be positive. But there could be power struggles with people over money, and it's more like family or property or home related in this chart, especially with your sun at a 4. And then when we look at the other ruler of money, Mars is conjunct the South Node in the 12th. So that means that there can be unexpected losses this year. This is connecting to Mercury, and Mercury is retrograding conjunct the sun. I actually really feel like it's about being careful with people at work and whether or not certain people at work are actually like your friend. It can also mean that you feel like you are cutting some friends off or you're losing some friends, and it makes you feel like you're having to give them up or let them go. And you also have, you know, Mars that is in a square with Venus. So there is going to be some diplomacy issues between your money, your resources, and other people's stuff. And it's likely going to be something you don't see coming. But what would that come from? Unexpected travel expenses, you know, unexpected maybe educational pursuits, unexpected changes that could be happening health-wise, because Mars is the ruler of Saturn and Neptune. So all the more reason to really focus on what's going on with your health and your habits so you can avoid some of these potential issues. And because Mars is at a 23, it definitely feels more like friendship oriented, right? Or that if there is so much socializing and things going on and you're going out and you're doing things, the impact that that has on like money that's being spent, basically. So it's not the end of the world, but you definitely have both of these particular rulers of your second house challenged, and Pluto is retrograde, and then Mars is conjunct the South Node. So they're both in a bit of like a tricky predicament. It's been tough with money the last 2 years. I work alone at home on my own, and I just have my husband, no friends to lose. So my advice here is with Saturn and Neptune coming into the 7th house, like it looks like it's about kind of having conversations, honest conversations with partnerships of some kind, and being like, hey, like what's going on? Do we have a vision? What's the plan? Especially because Mars is connected to your 7th house, and with the South Node, it could mean they have a job change, they have a health change, they could be going through some kind of change with their health and their habits. That could be like the unexpected, surprise that can come through this. And the Sun-Pluto opposition is definitely about major changes going on in regards to either your career or your relationship to a prominent man. So I would look at this and I would be more on top of what's going on with your partner's health, really, more than your own. That's just me, because Venus isn't too aspected, too badly aspected at least. And like career looks good. Jupiter in your 10th house, Sun in your 10th house. I feel like that can, to some extent, help smooth some of the financial things kind of over, but I think it's going to be more family and like partnership related this year. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful. There's a million different other things that I look at when I look at a solar return. I like to compare it to the natal. I like to look at the eclipses and like all of that stuff and the annual perfection, but you can only do so much during the live. So let me know how some of that stuff starts to hit as you're getting closer to your birthday. All right, so we have got Lisa, Enchanted, and then Stacy. All right, let's see. Where did I put Lisa? I know she was on here. Thank you guys for your patience. Sometimes these ones take a little bit longer. Thanks, Pro Designs. I appreciate it. All right, so I want to make sure I have the right Lisa here. So just give me a second. January 1475. We have got her. What's up, Lisa? She says, cashing in, current energy and best way to work with it. Huge changes all around this year. Starting to consider dating. Hey. All right, so probably, you're going to see dating is going to be a combination of Sagittarius, Jupiter stuff, and also 7th house stuff. So when I look at where Jupiter is still moving through Gemini, and it's direct, and it's now trining your moon. So that could mean that there's like this emotional shift where you're like, hey, I'm ready to start dating. I think my eyes immediately go to the fact that you're about to have a full moon that's pretty much in opposition to your Chiron. So it's bringing up, okay, relationships, how do I meet people? How do I talk to people again? How do I put myself out there? This could be like a full moon where, you're just kind of going out locally and you're trying to meet people. I think it actually aspects your chart probably a little bit better maybe than some other people. There's pros and cons. In the 3rd house, it's going to highlight communication and maybe even like online dating or just like getting out and just learning to socialize again. It does trine your moon. So it is going to say, hey, maybe there is this emotional psychological shift where I'm ready to kind of like connect with other people and partner. But it does oppose Chiron, and you're just kind of wrapping up your Chiron return. So it's also about saying like, well, wait a second, I have to put myself out there, or I have to be vulnerable, or I have to be seen, or I might have to go and do it by myself, right? The challenge is that this moon, as I've said before, squares Mars. So for like a Leo rising, it's bringing up a lot of subconscious fears about vulnerability and coming out of your cocoon phase, and where you've been kind of healing and working through some things. And it also simultaneously creates a square to your sun. So you've got a grand cardinal cross going on. And the positive is when you have crosses that show up in a transit, or they show up in like a new or a full moon, it makes the wheel of the chart turn. So it's actually like pushing you to come out of your comfort zone, communicate with people, make time to be, you know, getting out of work or routine and like going out there and doing something adventurous. So it's going to be short, right? It's just going to be as you're going through, you know, the full moon, because Mars is already done squaring your Chiron. It's already done opposing your sun. And I think a lot of Capricorn risings have been really reevaluating Capricorn placements in general have been reevaluating relationships. And so I feel like this period for you has been, am I done healing? Like, have I gone through that phase and now am I ready to like be vulnerable again? You know, and I feel like if you're not willing to get hurt, you don't get to play the game. So maybe that's been something that you've been kind of thinking about. Down the road, like Mars is going to hit your ascendant at 7, like you're going to see that pretty soon. And that could mean that you're kind of jumping or leaping into action with relationships. And that's the same degree which Mars turned retrograde. So I'm thinking like right around the time you're getting to early May, as Mars is crossing your ascendant, you're going to notice more swag, more energy, more confidence. You're going to be ready and willing to kind of get going with things. And I love that while it's joining your ascendant, it's also trining your North Node in the 5th house of romance. It's also trining Venus. So I would say like early May is definitely okay, let's get out there, let's start meeting people. She said this year work is closing. My son moved to Switzerland and my daughter is moving for college. Yeah, and this is about the endings and the conclusions and the completions on the home front. Mars rules family, so because Mars is intercepted in Scorpio in your 4th, there's a lot of things happening that you just didn't see coming, and you're like, oh my God, my family's going to other places. Like, where does this leave me? What am I doing? And you will see through a pretty prominent transit, either in your 5th house or involving Jupiter, that there is going to be a pretty significant change to your love life. Like, this is down the road, but you know, I think about Jupiter going into Cancer, trining your Jupiter, that checks out. I think about Jupiter hitting Saturn, so that means that you might be kind of seeing somebody over the summer and you're feeling it out and you just want to kind of see how it goes before you decide to tell the world maybe that you're dating. And I think about the eclipse that you're going to have on your natal Jupiter in September. It's going to be right on top of your Jupiter, square the North and the South node, trine Jupiter. So I do think love's on the way for you. I mean, you can pump the brakes and you can stall all you want, but sooner or later, hell or high water, you know, the next couple of years, Pluto goes into your 7th, you know, eclipses start in your 7th house next year as well. So it's definitely a new relationship is going to be coming online. And I think this has been a process with Mars in opposition to Pluto. Like, do I want to meet people who might have problems? Do I want to meet people who are unwilling to change? You know, like that kind of stuff. And, you know, the nodes going into your 8th and your 2nd house are very financial. They have not entered yet by Placidus terms. So they're going to be there pretty soon. You're going to see them kind of pop in there starting in June. So honestly, the South node transits in the 2nd house means that you're clearing up or you're clearing out. There's no planets there in that house, but it means that there can be changes in how you're spending, or you're willing to give things away, or you're cutting things out of your diet. There could be some financial fluctuations. But the North Node in Pisces in your 8th is about kind of like money coming your way. So it could mean that you get a bonus, you get an inheritance, you get a windfall, you get a bigger tax return. It could mean an investment pays off, and then you're receiving or bringing money in from other people, which I do think will happen. Especially if you have an eclipse on your Jupiter, which is conjunct Ceres. So it's like you gain something, but you lose something, while Saturn is going to be conjunct while Jupiter is going to be conjunct Saturn in your 12th house in the fall. So it's about changes with your family and like what those changes bring, but it could also mean emotional changes, and it could also mean you end up inheriting something or getting some kind of property. But that's going to play out more in the fall. Anyway, so I hope that that's helpful for you, Lisa, and giving you some insight. Certainly, it's been rough out there for those Leo risings, man. I feel for you guys. I mean, but now it's time, after the back and forth that you have been doing with the Mars-Pluto stuff, and a lot of you guys realizing that like there's a lot of change going on with other people, or other people are unwilling to change. Now you're like, okay, I'm going to do what I'm going to do for me. You know, it's my time. That's really what the lesson has kind of been about, I think. All right, so we have Enchanted, Stacy, and then Dorothy. What's up, Enchanted? You're welcome, Lisa. How is it going? How are you feeling with like Neptune conjunct your ascendant? What is that like? I'm assuming you want to know about what's kind of going on with this moon. So let's take a look. Yep. Okay. So let's pull the moon up. All right. So we've got a Aries rising. The sun is in Aquarius and the moon is in Scorpio. Well, look at that full moon. Look at how close it is to your 7th house, North Node. So obviously, you know, I think like, you know, it's pretty textbook. Full moon in the 7th house. Like what's going on with relationships? What's going on with clients? Like big conclusions or completions happening in regards to relationships with other people. Truth be told, I feel like this is the finale for what Aries risings have been going through. Like there's a lot of you realizing, whoa, because Venus rules other people, Venus retrograde on your ascendant, where you're giving too much of yourself away, like where you are not always prioritizing yourself and putting other people first, right? Or where you've had relationships where people are kind of taking from you and you're feeling depleted. And you might have noticed that whether it's clients, if it's friends, if it's romantic partners, whatever, that it has kind of made you retreat a little bit because Venus has been going retrograde in your 12th. You know, Mars has been retrograde in your 4th. There's been like this need to kind of turn within and go like, okay, you know, these changes need to happen. Nobody's going to make this happen but me. And now Mars is direct. Okay, so you're going to feel over the next week, the energy is going to shift with obviously Mars going into Leo. But the full moon is really featuring, you know, a major completion conjunct your North Node, which is ruled by Venus, and you have Venus on the ascendant, which means in order for you to better show up for other people, you got to show up for yourself. The retrograde Mercury and the retrograde Venus has been right over your Venus. It's been telling you the same thing. Now you're getting ready to see Venus come online. It's conjuncting Saturn, which honestly, I feel like this is a lot of like psychic protection. This is a lot of smudging your space, grounding your energy, wearing your crystals, doing your chants, your meditations, you know, things that are more spiritual and etheric in nature. So you're not getting slimed or bombarded with other people's stuff, with other people's problems. You know what I'm saying? Because the 7th house could be like people saying, oh, they're going through something and then they'll kind of take it out on you. Or, you know, they just want to vent, but then they end up dumping on you. And how that impacts you energetically or emotionally. And yeah, this is about you going, okay, now I'm going to kind of take note of what is and is not going to be good for me. And is there a fair kind of give and take that's going on? Difficult aspects, obviously, because simultaneously you've got Chiron and the sun on your south node. So you're coming into your Chiron return. So you're actually going to see like where you're getting hurt because other people are not being considerate, or you're feeling depleted because other people are taking. And you also have this square Mars, right? Which is your chart ruler. So wow. It makes Mars the focal point of the square. I mean, that basically means like it's time to cut ties with the past. Maybe it's time to really clear out the house or be more cautious about whose house you're going to visit or who you're having in your space. Maybe it's time to get things, you know, in order if you feel like you want to prioritize like a move. And maybe it's a time where you're learning also to reach out and tell other people, hey, I need help too, right? Like the 7th house is your therapist, your astrologer. It is about getting feedback from other people, because to me, it looks like you're kind of hurting a little bit and you're wanting to either move literally or move on, or, you know, get your home in order. And this is about asking other people, hey, can you help me? You know, can you be there? Can you support me? Part of Venus conjunct Saturn means that, you know, you're not really letting other people know that you need help or that you're struggling. So if you're the person who's used to kind of being there for everybody else, this is showing you where it's time for you to let other people know that you need some assistance too. The positive of the square to Mars means that it's really helping you have some final kind of push, and you might feel like there's like a lot of like hot emotions and things that come up from this moon, but maybe it's also about you going, I just don't want to be in a place that's tied to like old memories, and whether that could be family memories, romantic relationships, whatever. It's really encouraging you to kind of like proceed forward and like let the past go. And I think you'll see that this week. Like the moon's going to go into Scorpio. There's going to be a bunch of stuff trining Pisces and also Cancer. So there is like this full moon hangover about 48 hours after the full moon. That's like, okay, well that ended, that happened, you know, now I can kind of like have this release and process it. But there's other things kind of going on in your chart, you know, Mars coming back into Leo, You're going to have Mars opposed Mars. I mean, that's also a little tricky, especially in the friendship zone. This is a lot of wanting to do what you want to do and like learning to kind of maybe tell other people, sorry, it's not your time. You know, it's not your time, or it's not about you. It's about me right now. And you're going to see a little bit of friction at the end of April, all while it's simultaneously squaring your moon. But what is it doing? Trining your Venus. I mean, I'm going to give you the green light to be like really selfish for like the next 2 weeks and be like, I got to do what's best for me, and not everybody's going to like it, or not everybody's going to be used to me kind of asking for help, or, you know, maybe telling them that I have got stuff going on, but that's really the only way out of this. And then by the time you're getting into the beginning of May and you're no longer seeing some of the squares and some of the oppositions that are going on, it's definitely going to ease up a little bit. But man, here comes Saturn on your ascendant, and that means that you mean business, and you're going to be more focused on having better boundaries with yourself because it's opposing your 7th house, right? So you might actually see some crazy stuff kind of go on with other people that makes you go like, and that was like the line for me, like you crossed the line, you know? So now I'm kind of like reassessing the relationship or the dynamic that we have, and it's making you step up to the plate and go, yeah, this is not good for me, so I got to kind of speak my piece. And Mars trining Saturn, Mars trining Neptune, like whatever, you might feel like you're being evasive, or you might feel like maybe, you know, you're being idealistic, you know, or whatever, but no, I think you have to prioritize yourself right now. I would go and learn about Chiron transiting your South Node. I would also go and learn about your Chiron return because you're coming into your Chiron return, and it's gonna be a process of healing the self. At 27, it's about how you speak to yourself. What you're listening to, right? What kind of an environment are you around? Are you going to be around people who are going to be negative or gossiping, or people who are sick? Are you going to really need to be taking care of mental health? Are you going to need to focusing on maybe some journaling or some other things? South Node Chiron tells me you're carrying over wounds from a past life, and you're now needing to deal with it in this lifetime. And with Mars being in Aquarius in your 11th, you know, being around other people who are going to be in the process of working on their wounds, healing themselves, not taking on other people, being really interested in like bettering themselves, it would be really helpful throughout some of these transits, you know. Changing your music is great. I have another Aries rising client of mine that I can think about that has a lot of Pisces in their chart, but they had all these retrogrades, and I was like, you need to listen to like gospel music and this and that, and he came back like a month later and was like, I'm listening to, you know, hymns and gospel and Scottish music, and I'm listening to all kinds of like Gregorian chants. And I was like, great. Why does it not surprise you? Because that's you're a little bit of like a reluctant healer there with the South Node Chiron, you know, but there's also, that's your superpower. Mars conjunct Mercury is that you can take some of your experiences and you can teach through them, and you can share other people, and you can kind of bestow wisdom upon other groups that might learn from some of your experiences of where you have felt kind of like different or like an oddball, or where you maybe feel like you've been hurt or wounded, and how you overcame some of that, right? So having not only your Chiron return ruled by Mars, but having Pluto on top of your Mars, be a really great time to be joining some like, you know, trauma groups, or, you know, working with people who have, you know, had all kinds of like grief or loss or anything like that, because I feel like you'd be able to give them some really good like advice, you know. Anyway, I hope that's helpful for you. Good luck. Sorry, you guys are getting a sneak peek in my emails. I don't know why my Mac does that. If I like touch certain things, it kind of floats around. Anyway, so we're going to be moving on now. We've got Stacy, Dorothy, and then Golden Sun. Make sure I've got the right Stacy here. David's here. He says, smack those like buttons. All right, Stacy, Stacy, Stacy. You sent the details with PayPal. Let's take a look. No, different Stacy. So that was January 17th. And I got your note about the time, 11:29 a.m., right? I just want to make sure, because you put something about Astro Golden and not taking into consideration the time change. You're welcome, Enchanted. All right, so let's see what Stacy has to say. Stacy says January 17th, 82. All right, so just a general really of what's coming up. I've had lots of upheaval for the last few years. 16-year relationship ending in 2022. 2023, we sold the house and parted ways. I've been living back at home this past year, not loving it, but grateful for the option. Traveling soon to Italy for my cousin's wedding, and then heading to Scotland for a solo exploration of the Highlands. I've done that. I love it. I fly out on April 27th, which is Sunday. All right, let's take a look. And really, your 27th is my 26th. Let me go back to your question. Okay. Which is a Mars-Pluto opposition, which is sitting on my Venus. I guess I'm a bit apprehensive. What do you see possibly coming up for me in these transits to my nodes on my Saturn? Okay. A lot of fire risings. So Mars is your chart ruler. Yes, Mars is opposing Pluto. Would not have been my favorite day, honestly, to fly. That's just me. But by the same token, you know, Jupiter really is connected to international travel. And you've got Jupiter that is sextiling the moon. And you've also got Jupiter that is trining all of your Libra stuff in the 7th. Jupiter's in opposition to Neptune. Okay. There's also some squares that you're seeing with Venus and Saturn. Could be some weather stuff. You know, the Mars-Pluto stuff doesn't have to be that day. Like, we may see some things happen that day, but it might be, you know, as soon as, right after the moon goes into Scorpio on Sunday, like after the Libra full moon, we can start seeing effects of the Mars-Pluto because it's within 5 degrees, right? So I think that for you, your saving grace is that you've got the moon trine Neptune in the 9th, which is good for foreign travel. You've got the moon sextile Jupiter, so it does look like you're on the move. It is going to be a dark moon, so it does mean that, you know, there is like a sense of having to get everything together and getting it quickly done before you leave. And that new moon in Taurus is going to be square Pluto, and it's going to be square Mars, which is literally saying you going like, okay, I might have to spend a little bit more money. You know, there's some expenses. There's definitely focusing on comfort and value and things like that. But I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. The moon will be in opposition to all of this Libra. So it's really a lot of like dealing with other people. But obviously, you know, traveling, 9th house, also weddings, right? All of that stuff makes perfect sense. So I don't think it's a bad move. I think more of what I would be focused on is that this full moon that we're about to have in Libra is the setup for some of the stuff that you're talking about that you're going to go do. Because it seems pretty on par, right? So you're going to be going to, I think you said a wedding. You're going to be meeting with other people. You're going to be exploring. I mean, it's possible that just with the full moon in your 7th house activating, you know, Venus and Saturn in the 12th, it's like, I'm going and exploring a foreign land, you know? So she said, I spent so much money on this trip. Yeah. And also the squares. So, you know, the fact that the new moon's going to sit in your 1st house, it's going to square Venus and Pluto, which are in conjunction. I mean, if this were my chart, I would be like, work better be super killer when I get home because this cost me an arm and a leg, you know? And Pluto is going to be retrograding over your Venus pretty soon, which could bring a pretty dramatic change to your career or a pretty dramatic change to your relationships, right? And then you're going to see Mars come into an opposition with Pluto, which I actually feel like even though it's not in your 5th house yet, it's fine. I mean, you know, I don't know if this is about so much being with family or going and exploring your roots or something connected to your culture. Maybe Mars, I mean, I actually like when Mars is in my 4th house, I like getting out of the house. I like being out of the house because I feel like there's too much tension, especially with seeing like Mars squaring off with your Saturn and your Pluto. So this full moon is actually bringing up, hey, you got to go and meet with other people. You got to get out of the house. Yeah, so that new moon in Taurus is setting the stage for being like, yeah, I need to be making more money, but I'm not really worried about you traveling per se because, you know, Mars in opposition to Pluto is just more, are you going to go places and are you going to be, you know, dealing with authority figures? Is there going to be an interrogation that you're going to deal with at, you know, like going through customs? That could be very Pluto in the 10th, like somebody going through all your stuff. Like I remember going through a Mars-Pluto opposition one time by transit. And I was going through customs and somebody decided to be a jerk and just open up all of my stuff, even though I had nothing. They were just shaking out all of my makeup, going through everything. They were weighing everything. And I was just like, oh my God, you know, just invasion, being aggressive and invasion of my privacy. So you can see stuff like that. But I'm wondering with Pluto conjunct Venus at a 3, more than one option. Like you might be like, okay, I'm, you know, either going to get a pay raise or I'm looking for a new job. Or it could mean that you are trying to meet somebody, or you're open to meeting somebody and you meet 2 people, or you meet somebody and there's like a complicated situation because it's a lover's triangle and somebody's trying to get out of something. I've seen that a lot with Venus Pluto at a 3, you know, so just be mindful that there could be some people who are just being a little less than friendly. And also from an Aries rising perspective, Mars going into Leo and Pluto in the 11th means that you're going and living your best life and you're focusing on having fun and being creative and what you're passionate about and being on your own little, you know, passion tour versus other people who might be kind of jealous or kind of envious of what you're doing, or people at work who are like, oh my God, look at what she's going and doing. Like, I wish I was there, you know, and you're just like living your best life. So it could also just be people observing the fact that you're just very much in your element, you know? Anyway, I hope that's helpful for you. Smooth travels. You will see something in the news somewhere, but I don't really think it's going to impact you. Just be careful with documents, okay? Because it's at a 3. So don't go losing documents. Make sure everything is ready to go. All your boarding passes, everything's ready. Any identification you need, and how you're communicating with people. You just might notice you go to some places people aren't so friendly, you know? Anyway, I hope that's helpful, Stacy. We got Dorothy, Golden Sun, and then SR. What's up, Dorothy? Let's see. Have fun. It's so much fun going and seeing the Highlands. All right, so Dorothy says, hey Candace, I'm cashing in. Money has been harder for me since Mars retrograded. Does it look like money will improve anytime soon? Feeling defeated. All right, well, a couple things. You know, I have not heard from a single Gemini rising that has not had a difficult time with some of the money stuff with the Mars retrograde. If it wasn't money, it was, you know, spending too much and then having to scale back or returning things, or you know, having issues with self-esteem, which was very much connected to the retrograde because you have water signs in your work and your money houses. You have to feel good about what you're kind of doing and what you're making. And by Placidus standards, Mars is now out of your 2nd house. So I don't really see that being an issue. I think that you need to see something positive going on with your either natal moon or in your 2nd house. So Venus is about to go direct. It's within range of your moon. It's within about 8 degrees. So you might feel actually after Sunday that, you know, money stuff can improve because Venus is close enough to your 2nd house ruler that maybe you feel a little bit more optimistic, or you're more so committed to work, or maybe you're kind of feeling like I'm going to be a lot more, committed to the job that I'm doing because you want to see it through and you also want to see results, right? But when you have Cancer in your 2nd house, how you feel about yourself and money are very much intertwined. So if you're not feeling good about yourself, you're not making as much, if you're not making as much, you don't feel as worthy. So really the remedy for that is doing like a lot of, I think like reinforcing, reminding yourself you are worthy, you are capable, you're abundant. I mean, I know it sounds silly, but like that will happen. You have stuff to look forward to. So you are going to be seeing 3 triggers in your chart that indicate that there is going to be better money stuff coming your way. The first one is going to be that you're going to have Jupiter go into your 2nd house. Okay, so that's going to expand, obviously, feelings of how you feel about money and financial situation. It's going to make you hungrier. It's going to make you want to spend more. You're going to be craving sweets and breads and things. But Jupiter is connected to your whole sign 10th house. So that means that if you are showing up doing the job, you're going to be rewarded. You're going to make more money. You're going to feel better about yourself. You might spend a little bit more money as well. And that's a once in a 12-year transit. So you could go back to like 2013, right? You could go back to 2001. And look at those years when you had Jupiter transits in the second house, and you should have noticed something was shifting in regards to your money. The other transit that is also a giveaway for me that you're going to be having some financial fluctuations and changes for the better will be the eclipses that are going to be coming in the fall. Okay, so when we have the Pisces lunar eclipse in September, you're going to be having a lunar eclipse that is going to be basically right on top of, oops, where is it? There we go. Right on top of your moon, ruled by Jupiter, trining Jupiter. So to me, this looks like major fulfillment in the fall of being like, wow, glad I, stayed with this job, making more money, or wow, I'm glad I took on that, new management position because I feel, more capable, more in control, and I feel like I'm putting myself to good use. And now I'm also, feeling more abundant. And on top of that, you also have the North Node sitting on top of your moon, which is like time for you to shine. This is a good period for you to be feeling worthy and valuable, and people, I think, compensating you for a job well done. It's going to magnify transit Jupiter, which is in your money house, and it's also going to be in a trine with Saturn. So P.S., things start to feel better basically at the end of the month. I think you will notice as soon as you are getting into about June that the tide is starting to turn. And that's going to be when you see Jupiter going into your money house. Beautiful new moon in Cancer. I don't know if you guys have looked at this new moon yet, but you've got the new moon in a 4, which is a Cancer degree. You've got Jupiter exalted in Cancer, and it's a new moon phase, okay? And it's also trying to grow out of the square to Saturn and Neptune. So it's kind of saying there's a little bit of doubt, there's some fear, there's some new things coming up, but it's like, no, we can do it. So this is a good new moon for money manifestation for you at the end of June. And I think that by the time, Venus shows up, that's also going to be something that could sweeten the pot a little bit too. And that's going to be right around the beginning of August. So June, August, September, these months all look a lot better. Really difficult for Gemini risings, not just with the Mars retrograde, but with the Mercury retrograde, the Venus retrograde in your work zone, feeling like everything is slowing down. And you got a ton of Aries in your chart, girl. So now you've got planets that are coming up into your 11th house. My recommendation here is you need a lively bunch of people around you. You need to be working out with people. You need to be networking with people professionally. You need to be having team meetings. You need to be surrounding yourself with movers and shakers, because if you can do that, it's going to make you feel more motivated and more capable of being able to get out there and like make your dreams a reality, Saturn, Neptune, right? Especially as an Aries. My goodness, is full moons in opposition to your sun. I mean, it's just... yeah, it seems challenging, but I feel like money stuff I am not worried about with this chart. Not one bit. Maybe it's been rough, but it's not going to be like that once you're getting to the other side of May. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Dorothy. You got to believe. Jupiter wants you to believe in yourself. I'm very curious to see what happens when Jupiter goes into Cancer. That Saturn-Neptune square is colorful. All right, so we've got Golden Sun and then SR. What's up, Golden Sun? I have you here September 6th, 87. And that is a Sag rising, a moon in Pisces, and a sun in Virgo. Let me go back up to your question here. Where was that? Sorry, I'm trying to, there it is. Golden Sun, okay, cashing in. Well, this funk financially that I've currently been in, turn over a new leaf. I have been toying with so many ideas. Well, I can only imagine. Look at all like the squares that you have in your chart going on right now. Definitely turning over a new leaf is a good way to look at it. I mean, as I was saying earlier, anybody who's got planets in angular houses and then you have squares, it makes the wheel of the chart turn. So, most people would look at this and they're like, oh my God, what do I do? It's just like everything kind of happening all at one time. So it's going to be a process. I would work with the faster moving planets and then take your time with the slower moving planets. So just to kind of break it down, I think you've been in a funk because you've been having the North Node, Saturn, Neptune, and Mercury in your 4th house. So it's a lot of like, okay, what kind of a life am I building? Where am I living? You know, why do things feel so heavy? You know, am I having to go at this alone? Like, why am I here? What is my purpose? Even if you didn't have any of the squares, that's how you would feel with all those planets at the bottom part of the chart. It can feel like you're stuck and like moving through cement, but what it's trying to get you to do is really reflect on what's happened in the past, what hasn't worked, what's going on with you emotionally or with family karma or a living situation, and then free yourself of that. So it could mean that you're like, I want to move somewhere else. I want to completely restructure my life. It just depends. Because it's the lowest part of the chart, you're looking up. So you're like, why can't I have all this career stuff that I want? Why can't I be focused? Why is this not happening? Because you got to deal with this first. This is like an all hands on deck moment. So your home environment, your family, your emotions, number 1. Number 2, you know, Saturn is about money and values and possession and what you value the most. Mercury is going to be about relationships. So actually there can be a lot of wisdom that can come from older relatives in your family right now. I did a whole Q&A video like just a couple days ago where I was talking to somebody who was going through this, and it's the same thing for all Sag risings. They're all like, why am I here? Why am I stuck? Where am I going? Where's my career? Where's my relationships? You know? So there's a lot of needing to wrap up the past so that way you can move into the future. And I think it's even more complex because it's been Saturn square Saturn. So honestly, a lot of what's going on right now is partially on you. And I say that lovingly because when you're in your Saturn square and you got Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune in the 1st house, which means you're different, you're unique, you're dynamic, you're independent. You don't play by the rules, you know, but also very self-focused in the 1st house. You resist authority, or you don't want to feel like you have to subscribe to what's normal or a routine. So now 7 years later that Saturn has been squaring your Saturn and your Uranus, if you have been unwilling to settle, if you have been unwilling to start thinking about really creating like a home base for yourself, if you have been lost or confused, now this is on you. Pisces is about completing something, right? So what's positive in this is that, you know, for the most part, Saturn and Neptune are done squaring your Saturn and your natal Uranus. That's over. The retrograde is just trying to get you to wrap stuff up. Now what it wants you to focus on is Jupiter in the 7th. So Jupiter in the 7th, your Jupiter, it could mean having a therapist to help you untangle things, talking to an astrologer, right? Having a relationship or a partner guide you, having a coach. This could mean a relationship comes into your life and suddenly this person's like, hey, you don't have to be hanging out here, you know, in a funk. Like, let's get out, let's do something. Let's go and let's travel, let's move around. Like somebody who's going to be encouraging you in a way. Could be a sibling, could be a neighbor, Gemini. Which I think is positive. And that's also pulling you out of your funk because Saturn, Uranus can kind of get stuck in their ways and they can get kind of fussy when it's in the 1st house. So you need somebody who's going to kind of laugh and poke fun and, you know, try to kind of get you out of your comfort zone and get you out of the house. And all of this is also opposing all of your Virgo. To make it very simple, you know, you just had your nodal return and now you're having the South Node go through your 10th house. You may stay at your job or stay in your occupation or your career. You don't have to. Certainly the next year, if you want to be less focused on your career, or maybe you feel less driven, or maybe it's not all about what you have always done. Maybe you're like, I don't want to go to an office. I don't want to go to a job. You know, I want to do something where I can be creative or I can be having better, you know, home life balance between what you're doing with work and how you're feeling. This can be a wonderful time to start prioritizing maybe having a business you do from home, or maybe, you know, renovating a home, buying a house, moving. You know, it could also be about settling into a relationship and putting down roots and deciding if you want to like get married or commit or have a family. Because the North Node, Saturn, Neptune, all that stuff is in your 4th house. It wants you to do those things. And with that much Virgo in your 10th house, you're very much like a busy beaver. You know, you like to be moving and shaking and doing things. But I think it's time where you're kind of integrating more and you're like, actually, maybe there are some things I want to do that feels more meaningful, but it doesn't seem as, you know, out there and yeah, kind of like focused on like not being successful, but like you're not going to have as much like momentum, or you're not going to have as much like initiative, I think, to be out there and be doing stuff in the world, right? I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, what did the Venus and Mercury retrograde in Pisces teach me? I was like, oh, Like the more that I focus on healing, like the less goal oriented I become. And I'm just kind of like, at first I was like, oh, you know, Capricorn stellium. I was like, I don't want to think about that. But it's true. I think it's taught a lot of people that we have to kind of slow down and we have to prioritize and like lean into like what feels good. And if we're not feeling good, maybe we need to get, you know, going in a different direction. But also when we really prioritize healing, we're not going to be as focused on like hustling. And I would say maybe that's going to be something that's going to come up for you during this transit, that you're like learning to work smarter, not necessarily harder, and building a little bit more of a life that feels like it's in balance. So you can work out some of these oppositions that you have where there's, I'm always on my own, relational issues, always working, you know, like all of these planets are making these aspects to each other that create that tension. And now you're being asked to kind of go and build your private life and build your home life. So definitely focus on that first, and all the other pieces are going to kind of fall into place. But you will come out of the funk. Saturn and Neptune going into Aries over the summer is going to be a nice reprieve. Mars going into Leo, a nice reprieve. Just get ready for, you know, the fall. Once we get to about July through September, you're going to see some major changes of directions going on with your professional life in a very big way because of the eclipses and also the South Node Mars transits. Hopefully that's helpful. Very, very complex astrology. I try not to like muddle it, you know, because it's like another language, but to me it makes sense, but it's sometimes harder for other people to understand. All right, so we've got SR, who's having a birthday. So happy birthday, SR. I couldn't leave you hanging. Can you remind me where you're currently living? So I can look at your solar return really quick. Wow, so you got this full moon on your birthday. Oops, full moon, there we go. Right there, Sydney, okay. Well, one thing I'll tell you is a full moon on your birthday is something that's great because this is like a completion year. So now you get to kind of get the fruit of everything that was seeded. Go back to 2023, okay? So there was a solar eclipse around this degree in 2023 in the fall. And that means that you started something that year and now 2 years later, it's all coming full circle. It does not mean it's gonna happen on your birthday. You need to give yourself the year to see this unfold. But I think it's great, especially with Venus stationing right on your midheaven. That's big changes that are gonna come for you this year with your career and also with your relationships, like big, huge. The North Node is about where you're meant to go. And part of it is that you're leaving like one phase behind because Jupiter's in the 12th and you're embracing something new. So, you know, obviously looking at some of the transits that you got going on, you know, as a Cancer rising, you know, lunar transits impact you more than most other signs. So when you have a full moon, you can definitely tell that there is, you know, changes on the horizon. This full moon is also creating a full moon in your natal chart because the moon opposes your sun. It's sun conjunct your Chiron. So that's telling me that, you know what, you're coming to terms emotionally with the fact that there's about to be some major changes when it comes to your career, your identity out in the world, your goals, right, your professional life. And you also are having your Chiron return. Wow, that's a lot. Once again, positives, Venus, Saturn on the midheaven. I think that's good for career. We're committing more seriously to something that feels in alignment, and also your values with trines to Mars. This is going to be a really, really colorful solar return. So let's look at this really quick. All right, so there we go. So technically your birthday will be on the 11th per your solar degree. We got a Virgo rising chart, obviously ruled by Mercury. Mercury is conjunct the North Node in Pisces in the 7th. So, I mean, to be fair, it's like you were supposed to get a reading. I was supposed to be like, okay, you know, Mercury conjunct the North Node. But this is also, you're going to meet somebody this year. If you're, I don't know what's going on. Forgive me. I talked to like a million people. I don't know what's up with your relationship stuff. But this is a big deal. Okay, so like a very big deal. Mercury conjunct the North Node at 27. You might meet more than one person. Look for people who speak a foreign language or they're culturally different or diverse. Look for a combination of Gemini, Pisces, and Libra. Okay, People might come in pairs. But when Mercury's in the 7th house, granted it's debilitated, it means that people are going to come in when you least expect them. Okay, I think I met somebody. Okay, from overseas. Of course you did, Pisces. And Venus and Saturn are there as well. Okay, and so Venus is intercepted in the 2nd, and Aries is intercepted in the 7th. So it's a lot of like, okay, where do I stand with relationships? Also, what's going on with finances? What do I value? That stuff you're working through. I would say just having the ascendant Lord in the 7th house would be enough for me to be like, it's going to be a relationship year. But it's all over this chart, you know, with the stellium in the 7th house, the sun in the 7th house, the moon that is ruled by Venus, and Venus is conjunct Saturn. I feel like there's a very significant karmic turning point going on with either a relationship that's setting up or somebody that you've met or somebody else that you're going to continue to meet. Maybe it's a conversation, you know, based relationship. You guys are getting to know each other at a distance. South node moon means there can be some anxiety this year about the changes in your identity. Okay, so it's like, well, who am I if I'm going into a relationship? You know, how do I do that? You can have some stress revolving around that as well, or around what changes you're making, you know, emotionally, or where your goals are perhaps changing a little bit. Home goals, friend goals, shifts that are also going to be maybe happening with your finances. Might be a year where you're cleaning house, you're getting rid of stuff. But yeah, I think of like Virgo risings that are kind of going through the retrogrades. Half of my Virgo risings are like, I'm going through a terrible divorce, or I found out that my partner's a drug addict, you know, or like I found out they're cheating. And then the other half of my Virgo risings are like, oh my God, I met the most amazing person. And it's like what I've been waiting for. So it's very much one extreme or the other. And I think that for Sun and Chiron in the 7th house, that's interesting because it does talk about a relationship coming in with a foreigner, or somebody who can kind of help heal, but also it's like making sure that they are who they say they are, right? Because you still have like Mercury conjunct Neptune, and there can be a sense of being like, all right, I've met this person, they're amazing, like they're legit, but realistically from a financial standpoint, intercepted Libra, intercepted Aries, like how do we do this? And like at some point, does somebody feel like they have to give up their home, or somebody has to be willing to move, South Node moon, in order for you guys to like be together, right? I'm not putting the cart before the horse. I'm just kind of putting it out there. I think that all year you're going to be kind of going through this. I would really be paying attention, probably if this were me, when the eclipses come through, because you're going to have an eclipse that's going to be on your descendant in September around the 7th. You're going to have a solar eclipse that's going to be conjunct your moon. There's going to be a new goal that's going to be happening in regards to your home and your relationships. Be careful with getting pregnant. That could be a transit where you get pregnant. And then that eclipse is going to be in opposition to Saturn or Neptune. So it makes me feel like you're also putting somebody kind of on blast, and kind of saying like, hey, what's going on? What's the deal? Like, are you somebody who is going to be giving me what I want? You know, or you're saying to them, are you in this or are you not in this? Even Mars is at a 29. And then you'll have a Mercury retrograde there, which is going to be like right before your birthday next year. So March will definitely be another reassessment year. But pretty much a lot of what happens this year is being determined by who comes into your life. And that just doesn't mean just relationship-wise. It could mean you work with a therapist, you have an astrologer, you have a counselor, you know, you've got a business partner, you've got a client, like something like that, which can be really beneficial. And yeah, you do mean business this year too, because Virgo rising at 22 is like very matter of fact. It's a Capricorn degree. It's about Saturn. And look at Mercury and Saturn are conjunct with the North Node, ruled by Jupiter. So it's like, are we going to do this or what? You're going to have a lot of conversations about culture, belief system, what you want out of life, where you're wanting to go, you know, whether or not you see yourself committing or getting married. That's the kind of stuff that you're going to be kind of talking about, you know? So it looks like a very eventful year. I think you'll look back and you'll go, that was the year that I figured out what I wanted. And it was through a relationship to someone else. And whether that's the person you're meant to be with, or that's somebody that comes in and then you're just kind of like, wow, okay, that's exactly what I don't want. There's still a lot of sorting through some of this stuff, really all the way up until your birthday. When you have that retrograde in the spring of next year, is going to be some kind of definitive turning points, but it's going to feel big all year. Oh, one other thing. You're going to see Mars hit the moon on here and oppose Saturn. And that's a time I would watch. So that's going to be right around mid-August. Mars moon is kind of sexy, by the way. It's not bad. But then the opposition to Saturn and Neptune here makes me feel like this is also a definitive turning point. That's like, what are we doing? Yeah. Really interesting stuff. Hopefully that's helpful in giving you some insight. It looks like a very colorful year ahead. Definitely good that you got a reading. I hope you have a good day on your birthday. All right, so that was all of our level 3 people. I know we have other people that are still waiting, so thank you guys for your patience. Readings have been closed. So we're going to have Eve, Rome, Lula. Katie, I saw your message. I have you. So you are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 readings away, Katie. All right, so we're gonna move on to these people. Good news is all the charts are in, so you guys don't have to wait for me to like fuddle around with stuff. All right, so we're gonna take Eve, Rome, and Lula, and I've got Eve for a synastry. All right. Pull up your question here, Eve. Let me find you here. Oh, I think you were the super chat, if I remember correctly. There we go. All right, so Eve says, Candace, I need a synastry. I met this man on Instagram. We connected through our mutual interest in art. We instantly connected. It feels too good to be true. Are we soulmates or am I legit crazy? So he's October 5th, 2001. We don't know the exact time, but you say around midnight, so I put that, but we'll see. And then obviously you're November 9th, 92. All right, so let's take a look. So you're on the inner wheel. He's on the outer wheel. Do I think you're crazy? No, not necessarily. I was looking at this earlier. I think that there's a couple things kind of going on here. One is together, you guys create a full moon. So obviously you guys are both Taurus moons. It looks like your moon is about conjunct each other depending on the time he was born. So moon to moon as a Taurus moon, it's like when it comes to clothing style, food, music, art, you guys are going to have the same aesthetic preferences, right? Right? Moon is connected to your second house of like values, and his moon opposes your sun, so it kind of creates a full moon. So you're like, whoa, I like that. He's got Pluto on your descendant, so it's kind of sexy and alluring. He's got South Node pretty close to your Venus, so he can feel oddly familiar. South Node Venus, I feel like, I don't know, is there anybody else who's experienced that? I feel like that should come with like a warning label. Like, to some extent, the South Node is where we've been. So it feels comfortable and safe and like, oh, it's just like we're reuniting again after like so many years apart. But for some people, like South Node Venus, there's always like this reoccurring pattern of there's like a runner and a chaser, because the South Node can represent where we get stuck. So we can kind of hash some of the same problems from past lives, if you believe in that, in this lifetime, and it can be playing out subconsciously and it's weird. And then other people are like, oh, it's great at first, but I've observed through clients and like I've had South Node relationships. I'm not a fan. I feel like it ends up materializing as somebody who's trying to escape the relationship and they just keep running and they don't know why, and somebody who's trying to hold on. Usually, okay, the Venus person is the one that is afraid of totally, fully opening up to someone. That's you. And the South Node person represents somebody who's reminding them of the past, and they're very drawn to you, they're attracted to you, but you may find that it's challenging for you to love the way that you want to love because of some of that like dynamic. See, other people are saying it too, it's not just me. But I've seen some, like, I'm not just saying this, like some astrologers that are of a particular practice, like the twin flame people that are like, oh, it's a trigger, you know, especially if you're seeing stuff that's in Sag or Gemini, because it's about options, choices, duality, flexibility, more than one person, which you have, right? His Saturn is in Gemini on your South Node. His South Node is in Capricorn, conjunct your Venus within a couple of degrees. So, you know, I'm also personally not a fan of Saturn on the ascendant synastry. That's just me. Unless it's an exalted Saturn like Capricorn or Libra. I feel like that's eventually going to make you feel like you're holding yourself back. And I think it's going to be magnified because your South Node is on his Saturn. So there can, like, he's a lesson basically. Like you guys have some past life stuff. You've got too much nodal stuff for that to be the case. So his Saturn on your ascendant means you guys connect mentally. There's like a, you know, really great communication. You're speaking the same language. And maybe there is the sense of feeling like, oh, I'm learning from him. You know, he's teaching me things. Great. But sometimes Saturn on the ascendant, you can feel held back. There's trines from Saturn to Saturn that kind of soften that. There's also trines from Saturn to, you know, your Jupiter and his sun that softens that. So it's not a deal breaker, but a guy who's got Pluto on your descendant is going to seem like very sexy and very attractive. And Saturn on the ascendant can make you feel like you are being thwarted from being able to say what you want to say or being able to kind of connect the way you want to connect. What I like is that you guys have Jupiter, Juno. And Jupiter and Juno were husband and wife. And he's got, obviously, Jupiter in Cancer, and it's conjunct your Juno. So that I see that with a lot of husband and wife aspects. You guys also have Jupiter Sun, which is great. What else? Do you guys' Mars and Venus see each other? You have Mars opposed Mars, which that's fine. I actually kind of like that. And his, let's see, his Mars trines your Moon. Your Venus obviously is with the South Node, but your Venus opposes his Saturn. See, well, I mean, I'm just putting it out there. There's cultural differences. I'm not just saying that because of where you're from. Venus and Sag, like you have that in the 7th. Like you're very open-minded with, you know, who you date, where they're from, what their culture is, what their background is, where they're born. Like you don't discriminate, especially with the North Node. You're here to explore. You want to meet all different kinds of types of people. On one hand, his Chiron conjunct your Venus means that there could be some relational issues because you guys have some very different like culture dynamics, where you're from, how you're raised, your background, but maybe not. Sometimes Chiron Venus means that that person can come in to heal, but there can be a wound. And then with Saturn on the ascendant in opposition to your Venus, there can be this feeling of like, oh, is there something that's disjointed about us? Like, or do I feel like rejected because, you know, I'm not exactly like him, or we're different in some way? But sometimes opposites attract, you know? We both like that we're very culturally different. See, like sometimes it works. I think the Sun-Jupiter aspect softens that. I think the Jupiter-Juno softens that. He does have Venus square Saturn, so he's got a lot of lessons to learn about love, especially with Venus also squares Pluto on the other end of the spectrum. So he does not have the easiest Venus aspects. But, you know, I mean, it is what it is. I think that with a chart like this, he's coming in for a reason. I would take into consideration that there will be times that you're going to be like, oh, I feel a lot older than him. And that's not me passing judgment or anything. I'm just saying Saturn on the ascendant will do that, as will the nodes, which are almost conjunct, like reversed. So your South Node is in Gemini, his North Node is in Cancer. They're pretty close. So you guys have two very different purposes. And sometimes I see this when people like connect that are like, you know, 8, 9, 10 years apart, that they have a lot of, they have different life paths. And so there needs to be a sense of like patience and understanding that where you're coming from, they're going, where they're going, you've been. So there is going to be different lessons that you guys are going to experience in this lifetime. But this is not like the worst astrology that I've seen. I think that there's a lot of positive aspects, and it's definitely worth kind of feeling out and knowing that, you know, you are in your Jupiter, you know, ascendant transit year. You were supposed to be bringing somebody in who's very kind of Sagittarian-like, or somebody who's going to be very culturally diverse or different, or you're just supposed to meet somebody that you're just like, oh, we just click. Know that with, you know, the retrograde at the end of the year, when you get into like November and Mercury starts retrograding, that's when you're going to see like what's kind of going down with relationship stuff, and you're going to be kind of reassessing where you stand. And we don't know his ascendant. I know you said midnight, but 9 times out of 10 when people say that, meh. So I'm looking at it more from the standpoint of, okay, he's a Libra, he's got a Taurus moon, right? Venus rules his 7th house to his sun, Mars rules his 7th house to his sun, and he's got Mars squaring his sun. So he was going to have to move, go to another country, you know, really kind of work hard, prove himself, develop himself, and he was going to end up then meeting somebody. Mars trines Venus in his chart, nice. He is going to be having some transits around his Venus in the 12th house. This can make him very creative and artistic. And I love that he's got Moon trine Venus and also trine Mars. Very passionate dude. Something else to think about is like there is going to be like a Mars transit and a Saturn transit over the summer. And that's also going to be a defining moment for a Libra sun, moon or rising. He's an artist. Okay. And if he's got Venus behind his sun, yeah, creative. But also, I mean, it could be somebody who's into like different cultures and different backgrounds. But I think like with Mars trine Venus, it's a nice aspect, even though Venus is, you know, obviously debilitated. And then the trine to Moon is also talking about he needs somebody who's like very goal-oriented, passionate, somebody who has similar interests as him. I think a lot of Libra risings and Libra suns, Libra moons, right? Because Saturn and Neptune are going into Aries and there's eclipses and retrogrades. Single ones were supposed to be meeting people. So if you've kind of met him throughout like the last like month or two, it's a really kind of prominent kind of turning point. He just, you know, had all these retrogrades in opposition to his sun. So meeting somebody that's like brand new and exciting for him, I think was part of the plan. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Eve. All right, we got Rome, Lula, and then Jessica. I don't have my specific message right in front of me, but I'm just trying to use my memory to the best that I can. So I remember you saying you just got a job, you're working, I think you said, in like somewhere where they're doing like medical testing or like a medical lab, and you're like, it's weird, but it's different, and I'm working and I'm making money, so that's good. What's going on? So if you're watching this, Rome, and if I miss anything, let me know. That's all I can remember. So basically for you, this full moon is going to be coming in right at your Mercury-Saturn midpoint. So you got Mercury at 16, Saturn at like 21. It's going to be right around there. Actually, I take that back. It's closer to your Saturn-Pluto midpoint. So it's going to be right in between these two planets. These are two power players. When you have lunations, eclipses, like major progressions or whatever to like midpoints, those of you guys who are like, I understand transits and now I want to learn other forms, go and learn about midpoints. Some astrologers don't use them. I think they're actually very accurate. That's just me, especially in transits or in full moons. They seem to do some stuff. So in your chart, Saturn deals with your career, work and responsibility. Pluto deals with making money. It's also going to be connected to power and change and sex. So when you have this full moon that's going to be right in between there, can be about powerful encounters you're having with people at work, new relationship opportunities, so on and so forth. So it's going to bring up the themes of your Saturn and your Pluto, which is karma in relationships, relationship dynamics, power struggles, breaking through issues with others. Watch for drama with other people. It's in your 7th. This is a full moon that's ruled by Venus, which is conjunct Saturn. I kind of feel like it's possible that you become aware that somebody has an interest in you and you didn't know, right? Like Venus going direct with Saturn in the 12th house is like, oh, somebody had a crush on you at work and you were like, you didn't know. Or somebody has been kind of seeing you around town and then they approach you and you're like, I didn't know they were interested in me, like can come out of the blue. This can also mean that there is somebody that unexpectedly makes an appearance in your dreams or somebody who unexpectedly reaches out to you. So these are things you're going to want to watch for. Little tricky for Aries rising because this is, like I said, putting the Sun Chiron conjunction in your first house in opposition. So it's like other people's conflict, other people's problems. People can also be very forward with their constructive criticism. There can be people who are nitpicking. This can be specific to people at work. Also, this is going to be very much about showing up, supporting, and helping other people and getting the job done. So you might find that there's people at work that are quitting or people who are not showing up for their shift. And you're like, what the heck? Like now I'm having to work overtime or I'm having to pick up the pace for other people. That can also happen. People are not being responsible. And this is going to square Mars, which is your chart ruler. So it's putting Mars in the 4th house. So actually it's positive in a sense where it does prompt opportunities and maybe changes that are going on in regards to your home and your living situation. So I'm glad to hear you're working. Hey, that's great. But I wonder if this is you going like, okay, now I'm going to be looking for a roommate, you know, or now I'm looking for a place to crash, or now I'm looking for, you know, somebody who's willing to rent me, you know, an apartment. Seventh house could be people kind of connected to that who can help you with the process of moving. Maybe it's letting people know, oh, I'm planning on moving. And somebody goes, oh, I know of a place, or my friend's looking for a roommate. Like, look for those things because people will be talking to you about fourth house oriented stuff. Watch for getting into it with roommates or family. That's something you want to avoid. And I feel like with Venus being in the 12th house, you're going to feel like people are either kind of not being completely forthcoming with their emotions or their feelings, or they're kind of like filtering themselves, or they're hiding something, because this is obviously hidden from you in the 12th. And where people can be too much and you're like, I'm not taking on people's stuff. You know, whether it's relationship stuff from the past, if it's family stuff, anything like that, that's what you're going to kind of want to be watching for. But I'm really loving like Mars in your fourth house, trining your Mars. That's great for getting your home life stabilized and also money. I'm also really liking this Venus and Saturn stuff that's making trines here as well, because I feel like that's super, super positive for you. So you're getting like a little bit more peace. You're able to have rest. You're able to also feel a little bit more so grounded and secure. Pretty soon you're going to see Jupiter go into your fourth house as well. So I do feel like that is kind of bringing you, you know, bigger, better home base, something that's going to be more so kind of comfortable and like situated. And, you know, I mean, Mars going into Leo is also going to be good for dating. You know, finally you're kind of getting out of like where you have been like stuck. Like everything looks like it's been very stuck. Whether or not you stay at that job, we shall see. You know, you're going to be seeing down the road, Mars is going to come into your sixth house. And this is either going to be you're over inundated with work, or there is going to be a sense of you going, okay, I'm super focused on the gym, or I'm getting back into my health or my routine. Or it can mean that, you know, you're looking for a new job. It will hit Moon and Venus. So this can actually be a good time for like meeting people at the end of June going into July. But there's likely going to be some kind of change either going on with your work schedule in July, or really take care of your health. That's another thing that I would focus on. I get this feeling you're going to meet somebody through work because you have Venus in the 6th, because the Mercury retrograde in August is connected to these transits. It's almost like if you do meet somebody through work or there is some connection, make sure that it's a good one, because there could definitely be a little bit of like a riff or a going back and forth July going into August, to make sure that you guys can get on well. That's the one thing that I would watch out for, is whether or not, you know, you guys can keep the peace. But tying it all together, you know, Mars going direct in this week, great for you energetically, being creative, having fun, getting out there and feeling like finally, if you want to date, you can date again. Just be careful taking on other people's stuff, because to me, it feels like the full moon that's going to be happening in the 7th is very much kind of tied to you going like, whoa, do I want a part of that, or do I need like my own space, you know? Anyway, hopefully that's helpful in getting you some insight. I definitely feel like with Mercury and Venus going direct for Aries risings this week, it's like a rejoice. You know, you guys aren't really going to see the true effects of it until Venus and Mercury are kind of like on your ascendant or past the post retrograde shadow. But anytime after about May 9th, May 10th, that's when there is a clear, and there's like a major glow up for a lot of you guys too. So it's like looking better, feeling more confident, having more tension, right? So hopefully that's helpful for you, Rome. Hope all is well. We've got Lula, Jessica, and then Matt P. So we got a couple Matts here. Let's see. There we go. Good night, Enchanted. How about a solar return rising at 0 degrees, Virgo as well? Well, that's going to be the purest degree of Virgo, so it means starting from scratch. New jobs, new health habits, new routines, that kind of stuff. But you have to look at the entire chart, everything. And I don't do whole sign when I do solar return. I always do Placidus. So if it's a solar return exactly at 0 degrees, that's very important. You were going to want to go and look at where that 0 degrees is in the natal chart, because it's going to show you something significant, or that there is like a new cycle also starting within that particular house in their chart. All right, Lula says, astrology question. Ooh, I answered this in my video this week. How will I meet my future husband? Just some backstory. I'm currently single. I'm currently getting to know my best friend, which I met in 7th or 8th grade in school. I also have a work crush that told me that we can't be more, as he doesn't want commitment and doesn't want to be in a position where he can potentially hurt me. Bye. My date of birth is the 13th of July, 1999. Okay, my eyes. 1:05 a.m. All right. So, you're welcome. A couple things here. Number one, like, and I feel like I can say this, like, you're young, all right? If a guy tells you he's going to hurt you, well, leave him alone. All right, so you're a Taurus rising. You got your sun and your moon in Cancer. Dating is your 5th house, all right? Relationships and commitment are your 7th house. It's been something that's worked very, very well for me to look at the state of the 7th house ruler by sign, degree, and house. Okay, so I'm going to show you. So Mars rules your 7th house. So does Pluto. So we're going to have to look at both of them. But you have 24 degrees on the descendant. That's a Pisces degree. So that means that you attract passionate, intense, sexy, sometimes challenging, problematic partners. Now, 24 means they could be foreign, they could be culturally diverse, they could be into photography, cinematography, they could be artists, they could be people also who are just different, they're unusual, they're very sensitive. It's a Pisces degree. All right, so Mars is in your 6th house of work, and Pluto is located in your 7th house of relationships. So a couple interesting things here just off the bat. Scorpio descendant, Mars in Scorpio, Pluto at an 8. I would be looking for a Scorpio. I'm not going to say they have to be a Scorpio, but like you might meet somebody who's got a Scorpio rising, they've got a Scorpio moon, maybe they've got a bunch of planets in their 8th house. They're going to have some kind of Scorpio signature because it's like boom, boom, boom. And I would even take it a step further and say you're going to meet them one of 2 different ways. One is you're either going to meet them at work, okay, 6th house, or you're doing some work together. Maybe you meet them at a gym. You could actually meet them, it's weird, at work while you're doing some accounting, or you're kind of going through finances, Scorpio. Maybe you're looking at expenses. You could meet them also like at a health club or a health center. You could meet them at a grocery store. You could meet them when you're standing in line going to a bank waiting to talk to an accountant or like a banker, because 2 degrees is like a Taurus degree. Okay, so you're looking to get some financial help and then they start helping you. The other option is you're looking for a combination of somebody who's got Scorpio, Taurus, or Virgo. Okay, like for me, go watch the video that I put out this week. I talk about how it worked with my chart, and I have Mars in Scorpio too, and it was like bang on. Like the signs and the degrees correlated exactly to the scenario that had to happen before I met my husband. All right, let's look at the other one. Look at, you got Juno in Scorpio. Scorpio, 7th house. What degree is it? 26, Taurus. So you're gonna meet somebody who's like super into investing, or they're gonna work for a financial institution. They're gonna like manage taxes or banking. You know, some very Taurus-y Scorpio thing. And then we look at your Pluto, and your Pluto is in the 7th house. So actually, it means that you're going to be going through a situation where maybe there's an ending of one relationship. Okay? Because this is where relationships end, the 6th house. It's like, I got this thing going on with my coworker, Mars in the 6th house. And you don't want to give them up, Mars in Scorpio at a 2. And, you know, there is a back and forth about whether or not, you know, there could be a romantic relationship, or whether or not you're better off as just friends, Jupiter. And then a real person shows up, Pluto, who's powerful. And Pluto is retrograde, which means it can also be somebody who comes back from the past, and maybe somebody you went to school with, Sagittarius. I would be looking for a combo of Sagittarius, Scorpio, and Libra. You know, I think with Jupiter being the dispositor of your Pluto, and Jupiter is in opposition to Mars, it is also saying right when you either change your job, or you go through an ending of a relationship, or somebody says, hey, it's not going to work, it's like, boom, you're going to meet somebody else. Especially with like Juno retrograde, Pluto retrograde, Chiron retrograde, it's when you're in the process of leaving a relationship or going through a big relationship reevaluation, you will meet someone. And you got Mars in Scorpio. So, and Mars is in a decent house. I feel like that's good. You have Mars sextile Venus. That's good. You know, you will get married. You're just obsessed with it because you have Pluto in the 8th, in the 7th. And also because you've got Juno and Chiron retrograde. To me, it looks like you've been in relationships in the past where you were really fixated on the idea of being like in a relationship where somebody chose you, or they were like, oh, I pick you, but they were very controlling. You know, they were mean, Pluto retrograde. And you're working out some of that karma in relationships where you're choosing in this lifetime not to go after people who are going to hurt you. Even Mars is in opposition to Jupiter. That can mean, to some extent, there is a possibility that you will be in a situation where you could be in one relationship and then it ends, or you're married and then it ends, and it's going to pave the way for another person. Mars also squares Neptune. And the 9th house could be a second marriage. Sometimes I tell people way more than they want to know. So learn your lessons so you don't go through a situation where you have to burn one marriage and then, you know, you learn and then you go into a second one and then you realize what you want and you go, oh my God, that person was so terrible. And astrologically, a marriage is like you have a kid, you buy a house, you live together, you know, you have a dog. That's pretty much being married. The actual ceremony is the 9th house, in my mind. But you have a very complex Mars, Neptune, Jupiter square. And Neptune is going to be about whether or not you feel like you're kind of seeing things clearly or you're giving your power away. And also Neptune rules friends. So it's like, oh, I work with somebody, but we're friends, but there's things here. No, trust me. Somebody tells you they're going to hurt you, believe them. I would say that to anybody, but especially with a chart like this, because you're having to work through a lot of karma where you realize like what is and is not healthy in relationships in this lifetime. And whenever you have Taurus placements of any kind, Taurus rising, you know, moon or sun in the 2nd house, whatever, there's Mars at a 2. There is this wanting to be chosen, like wanting to be like, that's mine, you know? And that's how you might be with relationships. And also Venus in Virgo is very willing to make sacrifices and kind of help people. But yeah, no, I think that you need somebody who is going to be clear. They've worked out some of their kinks and their issues with commitment in relationships, because Chiron, Pluto, and Juno might mean you meet people who are like, I'm never getting married. And I would be like, bye, you know? Somebody who goes into a relationship with that kind of mindset, that's kind of closed off, that in itself, I think is your sign. You know, you can't change people. But sometimes people will meet people and they'll have that perspective and then things change. The whole point is to meet somebody who is going to change. They are going to open up. They're going to be more vulnerable, right? So those are the ways that you're going to meet him. And just fun fact, you know, when you turn 30, that's when you have your annual perfection, year 7. So there's usually big kind of turning points then. I'm not saying you have to wait that long for a relationship. Certainly, you know, 28 is another year when you have like a 5th house year. But you need to see some really positive transits going on either with your Mars or with your Pluto. And unfortunately, right now, Pluto is on top of Neptune, which is why there's not so much clarity maybe about where you stand with other people. And it's also squaring your Mars. So it's kind of like, what are we doing? Where are we going? Why can't we be in a committed public relationship? Oh, we work together. I've got issues. You know, this is a partner's 12th house. And it's also squaring Jupiter, which is husbands. So you'll start to come out of this square next year. That's when it's going to start to get better. And when you start seeing, you know, briefly in June, Jupiter trine your Mars, you might see some opportunities. You're going to have some eclipses in your 5th house, might bring some opportunities, or somebody comes back around over the summer. And then you're going to see a Mercury retrograde with Mars in your 7th, right over Juno. So somebody's coming around at the end of November. I don't know who, but Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus means you might meet somebody pretty prominent, especially when Venus and Mercury are right on top of your Chiron and your Juno. It might be somebody that you really like. And then Jupiter is going to be trining that, and it's going to be on your sun. Hopefully that's helpful in giving you some insight. It's always a fun question to answer for people, because it's like, then you're in that situation and you're like, it's happening, you know? I talk about how I got a reading from KRS. You guys know the Vedic astrologer KRS. He did that for me and explained exactly what would happen word for word, like the day that I'd meet my husband. And like it happened, and I was like a crazy person. I was like, it's gonna happen. It's so funny. All right, so I've got Jessica, Matt, and then Stacy. Make sure I got the right Jessica here. 82282. Oh, and this is a question. So is Jessica here? Because this is kind of like a complex question you were asking me. I don't really do these for the lives. I meant to say that at the beginning. So you can tell me if you want me to refund you, or if you want me to answer this the best that I can. So you're asking me an astrocartography question, which is way more complex than just giving you an answer on a live. So she said, 82282, I'm wanting to move to Northern Washington area. I want to see if this would be a good idea based on my chart. You're looking at like Port Townsend, how do you pronounce that? Sequim, or Port Angeles, Washington area, and you want to see if anything stands out. So a couple things. Your astrology is not going to change much in terms of your relocation chart, because Oregon's not going to be far from any of these places in terms of like the longitude and latitude. It'll change a little bit, but not much. Two is that to give you a really good location for a relocation, you want to look at the relocated chart, and then you also want to look at the astrocartography, which I use 2 different softwares for. So what I'll do is I will pull it up on my astrocartography, talk a little bit about what might be going through there, and also talk about why you're thinking about moving. But I always tell my clients, if you're serious about moving, book an actual session, sit down, do the relocated chart with me for the 3 cities, and then also we will look at the transits of the times of when it would be good for you to move, and sometimes I have other places that I would recommend for you as well. Okay, thanks Jessica, I saw your thing here. So just really quick, Jupiter is hovering around your 4th house right now. So the truth is that like this is a good time to be getting ready to move. The problem is that Jupiter is in Gemini, so it's kind of like I could go here, I could go here, I could go here, like it's all over the place. All the while you have had retrogrades in your 1st, where there's been a lot of like, where am I going to feel best? Obviously Pacific Northwest, coastal cities, right? Anything that's going to be kind of connected to like the water is like very Pisces. But Gemini is about a city. It's going to be more of an urban area. So it does look like you might narrow it down to 2 places, somewhere close enough you can drive, which I'm sure you can if you're going from, Oregon to one of these places in Washington, not too far. And it's not a bad time for a move. However, Jupiter has been squaring off with Saturn for the last year. So we saw it in August, we saw it, I think, in December. So there's this sense of, I want to go somewhere, I'm not happy, but where do I want to go? I can't make up my mind. So when you see Mercury and Jupiter coming together in your 4th house down the road here, definitely a good time for a move. So that's kind of like setting up for you in like June, July. So that's something to look forward to. Also, as a Pisces rising, Uranus is going to go into Gemini, which means there is going to be some spontaneous opportunity for either traveling or moving. And I caution you to do something too quickly, because if we do something very quickly when we've got transits in Gemini, sometimes we don't think it through and then we change our mind. So something you will see later in the year is that Uranus will go retrograde back into Taurus, and that could materialize as like a move and then a move again, and then you get settled into something more so next year. So if you're not sure about where you want to go, where you want to be, check out a few of the different cities that I recommend, or if I think one of these things kind of resonate. I'm not going to have the exact cities on my software that you're looking for, so I'm probably just going to see how close I can get with looking at a map. Also, I would say you want to go somewhere and you want to stay there for about a week. Something that one of my astrology teachers taught me a long time ago was, get in a relocation reading, go there. If you like it, leave something there. Leave a bag there, leave something there with somebody, or something that you're going to come back for, because that can start the process of like the actual relocation transits, and you'll start to see the effects of it if you like it. All right. With that being said, the other side of the coin is Mercury rules your 4th house, and the South Node is hitting your Mercury. So that tells me that, I don't know if you're going through a relationship change, what you're doing. Maybe you're talking about moving and you got people who are kind of nitpicking it, or people who are saying, are you sure you want to go? Do you want to do that? Maybe you're deciding that you're just like wanting to get away from people and kind of like start fresh. I don't know. But the fact that the South Node is hitting Mercury, I would say you may have some feedback from people that's not as supportive. You might also find that with the South Node Mercury, you're trying to get answers from people about whether or not you should move, where you should go. You're trying to sign leases, you're trying to get into places, and like people aren't communicating very well. Even your 7th house is your astrologer. So it's literally like somebody coming into your life being like, I don't know, this is a good idea, I wouldn't do this, which is setting up in June. And then Mars is going to hit Mercury, and that does mean that you can find yourself in a situation where you're actually paying for like a reading, right? Or you might be circling back to somebody and being like, okay, I'm going to talk to somebody else, and get some insight as to what I should do. So there's ways that this is going to unfold. In terms of where you're looking at going, which is going to be interesting because let me pull up my maps. You're going to ask questions about cities that I am pretty sure is not going to be on here, but we'll look. All right, so let's get to here. All right, so I'm going to pull up another window here while I do this so I can look at the cities that you were talking about. Northern Washington, want to see if it'll be a good idea. So Port Ange, Townsend, Sequim. So how close can I get here? Can I get any closer than that? No. So I'm going to pull up a map really quick. Because you do have a couple lines that go through there, but when you say north, I don't know what you're looking at. Is it exact north? Is it not? There we go. Maybe that'll help so I can see some of the places that you're looking at. Okay, so Orville, Winthrop Republic, Orville, Lakesville, Linwood, Tacoma. So I'm not even seeing some of the places that you mentioned. Are you in the chat right now? Are you here? Jessica? You can give me an idea of just how close it is to the north, because I'm looking at a map and I'm even not seeing it. Let's see if this helps. Bellingham, Newport, Spokane. I'm not as familiar with this area. Northwest corner. Okay, thank you. So it's going to be up here, basically. Up here. So, you're going to want to follow a Venus line, a Jupiter line, a moon line, a sun line. These are going to be some of the better lines that you can follow. So if it's going to be northwest of Seattle, northwest. Okay, so up here. So the only thing that you have kind of going on over here is you have a Juno line and you have a Neptune line. You have a North Node line that looks like it's going to be going much closer to over where Port Angeles is. So now I'm seeing Port Angeles. That would be interesting. Let me go back and look at your chart really quick. Hold up. So your North Node is going to be in the 5th, ruled by the moon. So, I mean, hey, it's good for relationships. It's going to be good for relationships. It's going to be good for joy. It's going to be good if you want to meet somebody who you want to kind of settle down with, if that's an interest of yours, because it's going to activate this, which is ruled by the moon. And what's cool is Jupiter's your chart ruler, right? Jupiter's going to hit your North Node this year. And then you're thinking about going somewhere where you have your North Node line. I think that's great. The North Node's going to be all about growth. So if you want to have more romance, creativity, fun, I mean, that kind of stuff, great. The North Node is going to take you, it's going to give you experiences that you have yet to have experienced, basically. And with Moon conjunct Saturn, it also means that it can help you work through some of the relational issues that you have had. So, what else do you have over there? Port Angeles, Townsend. I mean, really, it's the same area, right? So, like, if I look at your relocated chart, for example. There we go. Because it looks like it's just across the bay from each other. It's going to be about the same thing. So see, it doesn't change your chart very much. It's going to give you a different degree rising. It's going to shift a little bit of the planets up here. It's going to bump your sun closer to your descendant, but not much is changing because it's so close to where you're from. So then we look at, okay, what was the other one? The other one was Port Angeles. 2 degrees. All it's really doing is bringing the sun closer to the descendant, but all of the angles are pretty much going to be the same, right? Retros just took out last relationships. I think outer planet transits maybe the 5th house. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, that's going to be a theme. Like, I kind of feel inclined to tell you it's not really going to matter where you go. Okay? Because you've had eclipses that have been in Libra, which obviously the South Node eclipse on your moon took out a relationship. You have had an eclipse in opposition to Saturn, and now you're having South Node eclipses on your Mercury. I mean, you were supposed to be going through some major changes. So you actually relocating, it's not going to do much for your chart. And I'm not going to say you should go or you shouldn't go, but it's going to be a mere couple of degrees. It didn't even really change your IC, and that's really what I had my eye on, was how is it going to change your home? It was still around 18 degrees. So it's not going to be that different, but it is going to have a north node line that's going through there, and I feel like that's definitely a place that I would go and visit. And I would say that too with Jupiter going into your 4th house anyway, or through your 4th house. Go and travel and spend some time there and go back and forth and see which one of those areas do you like better, right? With Mercury being the ruler, you know, with the South Node, okay, I'm going through relationship changes, now I'm free, now I can move. Yeah, sure. And a Jupiter transit in your 4th house, you can do that. But I will tell you that I think it's going to be better for you to make like a more permanent move when you have Jupiter that's in a trine with Saturn. So that's going to be closer to the fall. So when you're getting into like October, November, when Jupiter and Saturn are trining, that's better because it's also sextiling your Mercury, which is the ruler of the 4th house. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think it's a bad idea to move, but I would be a little cautious with Uranus going into your whole sign 4th house, because you could move and then you could move again, you know, very quickly. I think it's better off using the energy in your Placidus 3rd, where you're going to go on some road trips and you're going to feel it out and see if you like it. But I mean, I love moving when Jupiter is in the 4th house. I also love moving when Jupiter is trying the moon, or when Jupiter is coming into a positive aspect with my 4th house Lord. All of that kind of settles down for you in the fall. But the soonest you could do it is definitely Jupiter and Mercury, you know, starting to come into conjunction together in the 4th. So you're probably ready to go about June. But I think that I wouldn't make it be about because relationships aren't working with the South Node Mercury connection. I would be like, I'm moving because I want to move. You know, I want to get somewhere else. I want to be somewhere else. I have a different experience. But you'll find that things are going to keep pulling you back home with Jupiter in the 4th house. Like, it's going to be harder for you to actually move until Jupiter gets out of that 4th house. Anyway, I hope that that's helpful. Definitely go and visit some of those places. And I like the idea of you going back and forth between 2 places, maybe at least until the end of the summer before you make a move, just to kind of give that Gemini IC what it needs, just to also like allow the moon to do its thing, because it's supposed to be about you processing some changes in a relationship before you make the move. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Jessica. Let me know if you end up going one of those places. We have Matt, Stacy, and then Katie. You're welcome. I guess I should see which Matt this is. This is Matt P. There's a Matt P and a Matt V. So this is Matt P. Let's see. Am I not putting the right one in here? What's going on? I think it's just Matt. All right, so here we go. Asking today about my teaching job search. My last day with this evil company is July 27th. I really want to have a new job as soon as my contract is over. Do you see me getting a lot of interviews between now and then, or do you see me struggling to get interviews? Do you see me having to stay at this job into the fall before I get into my dream teaching job? I currently have an interview Thursday at 4 p.m., 4:15 p.m. Central, but they have some red flags. I'll be interviewing them as much as they're interviewing me. I also had to turn down an interview from a good school because the principal gave me less than 24 hours notice and I couldn't take time off my current job. I promised myself that I would take the right job, not just any job, but I also want out of this horrible job ASAP. What sort of transits are you seeing and how I can best use them in my magic spell work to really manifest the best situation for me? All right, so probably a lot of this I attribute to what's going on with Saturn. Okay, so Saturn rules your career. You have Saturn in the 12th house, which is about something kind of getting ready to kind of conclude before something new begins. And the retrogrades have all been around Saturn, where you're like, this is terrible, I'm hating my employer, lots of stuff has come up that I don't like, but I also feel like I'm making the sacrifice and I'm helping the collective, or I'm helping kids. And you have felt like you've been dealing with people who you've been interviewing and going back and forth with who have been kind of like a little disheveled, or they haven't quite had their affairs in order. So there's a lot of you going like, nope, I'm going to stay true with like my vision and what I'm doing. The fact that Venus is going direct and Mercury is going direct is good news. This tells me that you're going to be able to have better communication. Also, Venus is going to be conjunct Saturn for a couple of days, which means you're going to be really needing to do vision boarding, visualizing, meditation. And it's very strong because it can actually mean that you have a breakthrough and there's an opportunity because you are willing to maintain that vision and you're not losing your cool or freaking out. So that's basically going to be like the 12th until Venus passes Saturn. I would say even doing something where you're doing some vision boarding or setting intentions on like the 22nd, the 23rd, the 24th, while Venus, the moon, Saturn is all coming together, because that can be very powerful in, closing one door and opening another, because this is about completions, and then it's going to sextile Uranus in the second house where you could suddenly have a new opportunity that comes out of the blue. Anyway, you also need to see some positive things going on with Saturn. And something else to take into consideration is, I know that you have this job that ends in July. Could you have something sooner? You could. I mean, you may have an offer with Venus conjunct Saturn, or you feel like you're interviewing with like the right place over like the next 2 weeks. But it's about not making those sacrifices and not backing down. I'm also curious because you do have, Pluto on your sun, and by Placidus standards, the sun rules your 6th house of work. So you have Pluto that's going to be retrograding here over the next month or so over your sun, which means you're kind of like going through a major purge and purification process where your goals are changing about just where and how you want to work. And Pluto sun transits are not fun. But it's all about your frame of mind. It's at a 3. And it's also about how you're going and communicating with authority figures and people about what the job entails, what you're supposed to do, what your purpose is, that kind of stuff. I've been watching while Mars opposes Pluto because there's going to be some frustration with other people, and you're going to feel like your schedule or your current job is getting in the way of your goals or your dreams, and you get very agitated. Make lemonade. Work with Mercury, trine Mars, where you're telling yourself it's coming, it's coming easily to me. I'm not going to have a problem finding another job. It's going to be the perfect job. It's really like mind over matter. And also finding ways to have like an outlet where you have like hobbies or other things you can do where you're not being like consumed with what's going on at work. Then you're going to see Saturn go into Aries, which is going to be a pretty defining moment because now you're getting real and getting serious about your boundaries with an employer and you're envisioning a new job. All the while, Mars is the ruler, and Mars is going to be getting ready to go into your 6th house, which makes me feel like you actually, I know you have a contract until July, but like you might actually be considering quitting your job when you're having your Mars return. Because it's going to square Uranus and you're going to go, screw it. You know what? If I've got something that I can leave, you might consider doing it in June. And then you're going to have another transit where Mars is going to come into conjunction with the South Node. So it could represent walking away from one job mid-July and then starting a new job. And that's probably going to be in the midst of the Mercury retrograde. And then you will have a new moon, which will be in Virgo. And it's going to be conjunct your Mars right here. So that's going to be on August 22nd. So I kind of think like, well, could you end up having like a 2 to 4 week gap in between? Sure. Do I think that's necessarily what's going to happen? No. I mean, I think that with Saturn coming in conjunction with Neptune, a lot of this is going to be about what you're envisioning and what you're kind of putting your mind to. And it's going to activate your Mars, which is in Leo retrograde. You're going to go, I'm not going to be doing anything that's actually like not going to be helpful for kids, or something that's like negative for my health or like my well-being. Like, you're not going to participate, right? So I'm not really as worried about it, but still, like a Pluto transit, it's a lot. I mean, it's going to put a lot of pressure on you if it's not, you know, your routine, your health, your habits, your coworkers. Pluto turning retrograde over your sun may also be a pretty significant turning point. So that's coming up here. It looks like May 3rd, May 4th. So I would be watching that, because that means that this could be a turning point with work. And look what happens, right? Mars is coming out of the opposition with your sun. Moon goes into the 6th house, and it's going to trine Mercury. I wonder if Pluto turning retrograde on your sun is going to be like, oh, I have found the job, you know, that I know that I want. I'm going through the interview process. There's too many correlations here with this, with the trine, and also Mercury being connected to work, right? And being more assertive and bold about what it is that you want. I think you'll do it, but I also know that this is the Sun-Pluto transit in a nutshell that you're dealing with this year, is getting into something else. And I think you're smart for not willingly just going into another job just because you want to leave. And worst case scenario, you know, having looked at the South Node Mars transits in the 6th, you end up playing out your contract, and then, you know, you get to about mid-August. I mean, it could literally be 2 to 4 weeks, and then you'd have another job. It would not be much in between, I guess is what I'm getting at, because the new moon is very much associated with a sudden change that's going to be going on with your routine. It's going to square Uranus. I think you can do it, personally. You'll also have another retrograde that's going to be happening in Leo. Granted, it won't be in your 6th house, but you are going to see that retrograde, and it might be picking up some of the energy of Mars that's going to be happening down the road. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Kurt. Mars in opposition to Pluto on your sun. This is like a lot of like, you know, other people's goals, other groups, other friends, other things people are focusing on. I'm going to keep saying this to all of my Aries risings. You guys have to be super selfish right now. You have to be selfish right now. Like, the only way you're going to get to where you want to go is if you have a me first mentality. And I know that the last couple of years with like Pisces, you know, Saturn transits and Neptune transits, and everybody's like afraid of seeming like an asshole or, you know, being too self-absorbed or too self-focused. Nope. Saturn and Neptune is like, in your sign, focus on your vision, focus on you. And with Mars going into your guys' 5th house, Aries risings, you guys have to be making it be about what's going to make you the happiest, where you're going to feel like you're going to be the most creative, where you're going to have the most fun, where you're going to get the most attention, like where you're going to have the most playtime. Like, that's what I'd be focused on. That's the only way that you can navigate some of these Sun-Pluto oppositions, or Mars-Pluto's oppositions, I guess, in a general sense. Because haters are going to hate with Pluto in the 11th house. You might as well just go and do what you want to do. No, stop it. Here's the thing. With Pluto, you can't say, I'm afraid of this, because he's going to serve that up to you on a platter. I'm going to tell you that you can't do that. Do not say, I'm afraid of this, because Pluto will give you that. And the sun rules your 6th house of work, where you have Mars at 29 degrees, where you feel like you get into destructive work situations, okay? You're not afraid of that. You say to Pluto, bring it on. Bring me all of the interviews. Bring me all of the people. I will go through all of them. I will sort through them, you know, and obviously he's going to give you some of his heaviest challenges for your existing job, right? No, you'll get called back for a good job. Your Saturn return's over. You will. You've already put in your work. You have to, like, literally the only way to deal with a Pluto Sun transit, because Pluto will kill the ego, is you have to look at situations and you have to go, I will work through it. It will be fine. You know, that's it. You have to power through it. Otherwise, if your ego gets tied up in stuff and you're like, oh, well, you know, it has to be this because it, you know, I'm this, I'm that. No, it wants to radically transform what you're here to do. The sun is you being of service. So Pluto is going to say, I'm going to make your job so shitty that you're going to say, I'm going to go and look for something else, even if I'm going to go into another position, another field, if I'm going to go to another school. And you have to basically be like, okay, dude, I got the message. You know, I got to make a change. And fixed signs, they don't want to change, right? But it's all about the change of the frame of mind. how you're looking at your goals. If your goal is, I want a great job, I want to help kids, I want to make good money, and I want to be in a healthy, respectful place, make it be about that. Don't make it be so much about it has to be this specific position or this thing. No. Focus on making the difference. And if you can find something that can do that, and I think you will, because it will bring you a job that will empower you, or it will put you in the position of power, or working with a much more powerful kind of school, or, a different district even, or you'll go and you'll end up kind of working with different kids. You'll work from being around kids who, maybe have had some rough upbringings to now you're transforming and you're going to go, well, now I'm going to go work for a magnet school, or it's going to be a science-based school, or it's going to be something that's going to be specialized. Like, it's going to be very different. So keep an open mind with the kind of potential educational programs or, schools that you're going to be working for. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Trade schools, tech schools, that kind of stuff might be really interesting too. Magnet schools, things that specialize. All right, so we've got, let's see, who else? You're welcome. We've got Stacy, Katie, and then Nay. Oh, we had Stacy already. All right, check. We've got Katie, Nay, and then Matt V. Let's pull Katie up here. And it looks like Katie, May 15th, 1998. Scorpio rising, Sun in Taurus, and a Moon in Capricorn. Katie says, I'm feeling very frustrated about not leaving my current job, social work, yet, as I've been trying to for a while now, and I have started my own business that will likely be fully ready in July. Good for you. Wondering what will give regarding my current job. I've been contemplating going rogue, but the Capricorn moon in me says absolutely not due to the financial obligations. I was going to go on a date today, but canceled and too tired, stressed about wanting to leave this job. Wonder what the heck will I do? What's up, Katie? All right, couple things. Scorpio rising problems for sure, okay? Makes perfect sense. A lot of this is eclipses and retrogrades that are starting in your 6th house. Work, habits, routine. Aries, I'm starting something new. I'm managing my schedule, trying to do my own thing, trying to maintain the work I am doing, feeling exhausted, not liking it, getting frustrated, in a nutshell. Mercury and Venus retrograded to your 5th house. And I'm just going to be honest, I feel like I wouldn't be canceling too many dates right now. I mean, I understand you got to be in a good headspace, right? If you're going to be, obviously working, and if you're going to be dating, like everything's got to be balanced. But there's a method to the madness. I think for a lot of Scorpio risings, you guys do have to kind of buck up because you have Saturn and Neptune going into your 6th house. And I'm going to tell you, it will kick your ass all over town if you guys are not on a routine. Like when I started this routine for 2.5 years ago versus like where I'm at now with Saturn and Neptune leaving my 6th house, it's like mind blowing. Like I am in some ways so much more efficient. In other ways, I know I'm still like a secret slob. That's what my husband calls me. But still, like it's good. Like you're going to be more productive. You're going to have more drive. You're going to create to-do lists. You're going to launch businesses. You're going to be busy. Things will work out. You have time. But the retrogrades went into your 5th house, and I feel like you're missing out on an opportunity where, yeah, you're stressed out, but like you need love too. And this is very karmic because Venus represents your 7th house of committed relationships, and it's meeting with Saturn. Like you could potentially meet a very, very good person right now, an amazing partner. And also this is about de-stressing and giving yourself the opportunity to just go and just have an evening where you can just have romance and don't even have to have commitment. You could just have fun and go and do a dinner or a date or whatever. Like I would actually call that person back. Okay? Because the full moon's in the 11th house. The 12th house pretty soon. You might lose a really good connection. Unless you're like, this guy's a dud. Okay, maybe. You have a good window here. Quitting a job is going to be more like when you have a Mercury retrograde in Leo over the summer. Right? And I can see that you want to quit because Mars is going into your 10th house and it's opposing Pluto and you're like, oh my God, the emotional stress of it all. But it's also trining stuff in your 6th. So you're right. You do have to really focus on staying the path, being committed, keeping your job. I feel like if you want to make a change and you want to get out of your job, this can be something you can be contemplating in July, but you're going to be asking yourself and reassessing, am I making enough money doing this? Because Mercury is tied to your 8th house where Uranus and Venus is. If you're making enough money or there's enough supplemental income coming in that you can start to transition, great. By all means, do it. But the long and short of it is, until you have a really strong transit to your sun that's positive, you're not going to see something stabilize. So Jupiter will sextile that this year. You will also see, Jupiter then go into your 10th house, and you'll have some eclipses there next year. I feel like you're on the path by about maybe next spring, next summer, that you could fully get out of one position and go into another. And I'm just being realistic because I want to see Jupiter in your 10th house expanding your career. I want to know you're making money doing that. I want to know that also you're happy doing that. And I want to see it trine Saturn, where I know there's going to be routine and consistency, and like now you can actually try to, make the shift. So you're looking at about a 1-year plan, with the understanding that you got to get through the end of April where it's intense, and you might reevaluate things definitely over the summer, right? So just kind of hitting all these at the same time. The other thing to take into consideration is that Mars rules your 6th house, and it's in the 7th, which means that you work better with a partnership. And whether this means you have a business partner, you have a client, you have somebody who supports you, maybe you've got a coach, you got a mentor, you need somebody to help you, or you need somebody to work with you. And Venus is connected to relationships. So there's mutual reception between your Venus and your Mars, right? Part of your Saturn return is also going to be about learning how to kind of get established with your business, but you might be a little bit ahead of the curve now. Uranus will leave your sun. Career stuff will stabilize. Yes, there's been some frustration and feeling like you've been kind of helping and giving to other people. But by the time you get to next year, when Saturn's dancing on your Venus, that's it. You're going to be like, because of your health or because of your schedule or because you feel like what you've been working on is taking off, then you can kind of start to make the segue. So I do see a light at the end of the tunnel, but from, I guess I'm speaking to like your Capricorn placement. Yeah, you do need to be focusing on creating a schedule and a routine so you can streamline everything, so you can really have the exit strategy that you're hoping to kind of achieve with some of the stuff that's going on with your career. Difficult if you got Venus and Saturn in the 6th. It means that your love life will have sacrifices. You will see sacrifices in your love life, or you will see sacrifices in your health because you're giving to other people, and it's not necessarily good for you, So I hope that that's helpful. What kind of a business are you starting? We've got Nay in the Bay, Matt V, and then Robin. Astro dating app. Love it. I love that, with Uranus having been on your Sun and your Mars in the 7th. That's great. So you're offering services to people. So that's good. That's a way to use your Venus. Help people work through their problems. That's such a good thing for like Venus in the 6th, like helping people with dating stuff. I feel like if people start like dating that way, the relationships are going to go a lot better. All right, we've got Nay in the Bay. Nay says, is there anything in love coming up? March 27, 2001. Leo rising, Sun in Aries, and your moon is located in Taurus. Love stuff. I feel like I've heard this from a lot of Leo risings, but not a lot of you guys like my answer. Maybe it's a little bit different for you though. Actually, the transits that have happened recently have been very, very, very personal to you. So the fact that nothing is happening, or that nothing has been developing, or maybe that nobody's come back or nothing has changed, is very surprising. The reason why I say that is the solar eclipse that we had in Aries was at 9 degrees. Okay, so you had a solar eclipse right on your Venus in the 9th house, which could have been like, I'm traveling, there's a long distance fling, I have this interest in this new course, I'm adopting this new philosophy, whatever. But like, it was right on your Venus. And then Mercury went retrograde right on your Venus, and then Venus went retrograde right over your natal Venus in conjunction. Just so many things happening all at one time that I see this as like several rebirth processes that you've been going through revolving around what your belief and your philosophy is about relationships. And also it's in Aries. So it's like, is this the season of your life where it's meant to be you learning about you, or you traveling, or you being on your own? Not saying you can't be in relationships, but girl, ninth house retrograde in the ninth house ruler retrograde in the 12th. Could have been about a healing process, or needing to travel, or kind of spending some time alone and kind of feeling in solitary confinement. And now you also have Mars getting ready to come back into Leo, where it's going to dance with an opposition to Pluto and Neptune. I mean, this is time where Leos that are partnered can be in relationships, but they need space and they need freedom and kind of like the ability and the authority to go and do their own thing. And single Leos can meet people, I mean, especially with a chart like this, but you're going to meet them at a distance, or while you're traveling, or you're going places, you know, or you're going to be kind of connecting with people while they're in town, or, you know, you're trying to think of ways that you can meet people that might be further away. Solitary confinement. You know, the Mars-Pluto opposition is not friendly with what's coming up, especially because it's going to oppose Pluto and it's going to get squared by the sun. So you're going to see pretty much from like April 20th through the new moon that the sun's going into your whole sign 10th house, which is like you going, I got to be a boss now. I got to focus on work. I got to get more, you know, honed in on what's going to be my priorities professionally, or, you know, having some, I guess, like stability in my career. And that's going to square Mars on your ascendant, where you're going to be a little testy with authority figures. And it's also going to square Pluto on your descendant, where you're going, you know what, it's not so much about relationships. I'm in the driver's seat. So there's something going on here where I feel like it's not that you can't have relationships, but you're being asked really to focus more on you and less on whether or not somebody's ready, whether or not they've changed, whether or not they're coming around, like all of that stuff in my mind. But once Venus comes back to where the eclipse was, you might actually see something. So that's going to be right around when it hits your sun. So I would say May 11th. And then it's going to hit your Juno. So I'm wondering, do you meet somebody around the 25th, 26th, 27th? Keep your eyes open. And you need to see a significant Saturn transit for a relationship to set up. Well, boom, Saturn goes into the 9th. All right, and it's sextiling Pluto. Also, Uranus is the co-ruler. Uranus is dancing on your Saturn. I mean, literally, this is telling me you're going to either meet somebody because you go through a career or a job change, or you're meeting people out in the world, and there's some dynamic shift with a boss, your reputation, your career. I'm like, my God, that's squaring your Uranus. I mean, it's like, as much as I hate to say it, it's not the time right now. The universe really, I mean, wants you to focus more on making changes to your professional life, and, you know, realizing that that's going to help get you in the direction of where you need to go with relationships. A lot of this is also your natal chart. Saturn in the 10th, square Uranus in the 7th. You know, a lot of unpredictability, inconsistency with relationships. Things are off and on, hot and cold, or, you know, friendly, and then it's not. And that breaks apart and kind of fractures because it wants you to focus on long-term career goals, your reputation, your purpose, your money. Once again, not that you can't have relationships, but you're going to learn that there is a difference between people who are around for a good time, Uranus in the 7th, out of 23, and people who are around for a long time, and people who want the same things you want and also want to support your career and they want to see you grow. And they're also going to maybe be a little bit more serious when it comes to like home and family matters. So you'll kind of go through a weird and wacky trial of partners and relationships until you get to like the one. And if we look at your natal Saturn, it's in the 10th, so you could meet them through work. Taurus, Capricorn, Gemini vibes. And then you've got Uranus in the 7th, so that's more like Libra, Aquarius energies. And I feel like you're going to be torn between, do I just want something that's kind of casual, or do I want something that's like long-term? And you feel like you have to choose between relationships or career. And you'll see a lot of relationship instability because I think you will choose career personally with Saturn square Uranus. So while you're still experiencing your Saturn-Uranus transit, it's going to be harder to have something kind of settle down. But in a period of time, you will see stuff that's going to come through because eclipses will start hitting Aquarius. So for example, next year, I think they start next year. Is it next year? Oh my God, it is. So February of next year, you're going to start having eclipses in your 7th. Okay, right on your, close to your Uranus, and it's going to square Uranus. So there could be a relationship dynamic changing, you know, February of next year. You have Mercury retrograde November of this year too. So there's definitely opportunities. Once you're getting into the fall, into the beginning of next year, you're going to start to see love stuff shift. Hopefully that's helpful for you. We've got Matt V. Cancer rising, Sun in Taurus, Moon in Libra. What's up, Matt? Before I go on to Matt, did we get Robin's birth info? Just want to make sure we get that. And did we confirm Abigail? Just want to make sure we get that. All right, Matt. Hey, Candace, just wondering what to expect from this transit. Well, let's take a look. So I'm assuming we're going to take a look at this full moon in Libra. Obviously you have a Libra moon, okay? It's not going to be anywhere near your moon, so you're safe in that sense. Thank you. So you're good there. But the moon is going to be significant because you're a Cancer rising, so you're impacted more so by lunar transits than most people. It's going to be right on your IC. Actually, no, I take that back. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be closer to your 5th house cusp. So this will kind of maybe go along the lines of like the Gemini rising. So a full moon in the 5th house can be good for romance, relationships, dating, meeting people, that kind of stuff. Where I like it is I think that this is going to bring you the opportunity to kind of realize what the heart wants, or a major turning point with a creative project or with self-employment. I also like that it does slightly trine your Venus and your Jupiter, so it does feel like it can have some romantic vibes, or it can be some very creative vibes. It can be very spiritual as well. Where it's a little tricky is it's going to be squaring Mars in your sign, okay? So this is going to make Mars the focal point of a square between the moon and the sun. And what you're going to hear for Cancer risings is, oh, there's a home or family change. There's a home dynamic. There's a lot of emotions coming up, you know, or you're having to deal with the past maybe, but it's not as harsh in your chart. But Mars does square this. So it's about kind of jumping into action. And it's like really asking yourself, what am I going to do? What direction am I going to go in? Am I going to focus more on being in the past, you know, or maybe feeling stuck, or maybe feeling stagnant? Or am I going to be taking some kind of action when it comes to visiting my family, talking to my family? Is there something going on with somebody in my family or a roommate? And it's also going to be squaring the sun, which is going to be connected to your whole sign 10th house of career. So it's about leaping into action and really listening to your gut and your intuition when it comes to making moves. Not a bad full moon. I think that as a Taurus, you might navigate it a little bit better, you know, obviously, but it's not making any real hard aspects to any of your personal planets. So you're just going to be kind of feeling the effects of being like, whoa, there's something going on with a friend or a family member. And, you know, it's about how I react or I respond to things. Don't just act or react on your impulses. That would be my advice with Mars in your 1st house. Be mindful people might kind of push your buttons a little bit. You might feel rushed to do something, but you can also feel very passionate because the moon's in your 5th house. So you might feel like very passionate about a project or about a person. There can be some kind of sudden romantic opportunity that can kind of pop up. And the ruler at the time is Venus, which is going to be going direct in your 9th, and it's trining Mars. So I almost wonder, is this somebody who's like, I want to come visit you, you know, or somebody that you connect with at a distance or at afar, or, you know, somebody who you kind of have had your eye on, or they've had your eye on you. And then there is this kind of like insight that you get that's like, oh yeah, I am interested, or I am going to be around, you know, and that could be the shock and the surprise of the full moon that can kind of come up for you as well. But I'm not worried about it. I think that if anything, you're going to be pleased to see Mars leave Cancer pretty soon. I think all Cancer risings are going to be very, very, very happy to see this end, because it's been months of having Mars in your sign and feeling like very depleted, and also feeling like either you have not known what direction you're going in, or maybe a little bit more emotionally defensive. But I think with that leaving your sign, I think with Saturn and Neptune going into Aries, there is definitely going to be this shift where you're going to feel like more in control when it comes to your professional and your career related things. I was worried with the Cancer rising Libra moon. No, as long as it's not hitting the degrees in your chart, you're fine. It trines out some of the stuff to your south node. It makes an opposition to your Jupiter, which I actually feel like could be really good for your career. And also, you know, you've got Jupiter conjunct your Venus. So that's wonderful. I mean, that may bring, I mean, a full moon in the whole sign fourth, truth be told, you know, we hear some heavy stuff happen with family. And so I'm looking at that full moon trining Jupiter and your Venus in the 12th. Is your sister going through something? Do you have a female aunt or a cousin going through something? Like something like that could be going on, because there is a lot of emotions in the 8th and the 4th and the 12th house. Think back to what's happened over the last 2 years. This particular full moon is tied to a solar eclipse we had in the fall of 2023. Did you move that year? Did you have a goal for where you wanted to be with your home or your living situation? Did something happen with one of your parents? Was that a time where, you know, you had just moved in or out of a place? Something like that is kind of connected there. So this is kind of like the finale where you're wrapping up what's been like several years of Libra eclipses, which has been really difficult for, you know, Cancer placements. So now you're finally kind of working out of that phase. Hopefully it's helpful for you. Move the furniture around a little bit if you get anxious. Move some furniture around, redecorate some stuff maybe. It might be about bringing in some stuff that can be a little bit more, you know, a little bit more vibey, Saturn and Venus in Pisces. You know, so maybe you're bringing in some beach scenes or some things that are going to kind of make the house feel a little bit more zen or a little bit more like summery. Painting, design, all that stuff can be good during the full moon in the 4th. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, let's take a look here. Okay, so we still need Abigail's info. We have Robin's info. Thank you. See if I have her here. May 30th? March 30th. There. All right, so we've got Robin, Amanda, and Maritza. And Abigail, we still need to confirm your info if you're there. All right, Robin, do you have a particular question for me? Let me know if you have a particular question. Otherwise, we're going to talk all things full moon. You got a Cancer rising, sun in Aries, and your moon is in Taurus. Wow, wow, wow. Look at this Pluto square your moon. While Mars has been retrograde on your ascendant. While Venus has been retrograde over your sun. Holy cow, you have got a lot of stuff going on. Let me pull up this full moon. Let's see if she pops in here. So just a couple things. You know, all of this is tied into, you know, what's been kind of happening here for you. Is that you? Is that you maybe? Just wondering what's ahead for 6 months. It's been rough. So yeah, rough makes sense. Yeah, okay. Okay, so your moon is your chart ruler, right? So when you have eclipses, that impacts you. Full moons, that impacts you. Your moon's in Taurus, and you got Moon Mars that's at the top part of your chart, okay? So having had Pluto square your moon basically means lots of emotional turmoil, challenges with home, family, money stuff, career stuff, women, that kind of stuff. Pluto's going to be squaring your moon pretty much on and off all year. So it'll be done in the new year. But while it's squaring your moon and your Mars, it's really bringing up like issues with changes to your goals, changes to your home and relationships with women. Okay. And yeah, okay. Solitary makes sense. It makes you feel like you want to hide out. You have felt like that because Mars has been in your 12th. So guess what? Mars is about to hit your ascendant. So that means you're coming back online. And this is about what you've learned since you've been in solitary confinement. It is in a trine to a bunch of planets in Pisces. Honestly, meditation, hypnosis, self-help, self-healing, anything that's going to be about spiritual gurus and teachers, practices is very helpful for you. You know, that was supposed to come through during the Venus and the Mercury retrograde, especially because it's been going on very close to your Chiron, which is literally about spiritual healing. Even if it's stuff you do by yourself. right? So now that we are coming out of the retrogrades, Mars is back on your ascendant. Can you be feeling a little crabby over the next couple of days with the full moon? 100%. But Mars in the first house does well. It means that you feel more bold and dynamic and assertive. Yes, you can have some prickly moments with Mars opposing Pluto, where you might have to tell some people at the end of April, stand back, give me some space, or I'm not playing with you. You can do what you want to do, but this is the reaction. And then Mars is also going to square your moon and Pluto. So once it gets basically around 4 degrees at the end of the month, you're now coming into the clear. There's been something really important going on with Venus and Mercury retrograde over your sun. It's been trying to get you to think about, where do you want to have more authority in your life? Where do you want to feel like you're in the driver's seat? Where can you be more direct and assertive? Can you start something new? Can you redefine your life or your career, your identity? How do you feel about making money? What's your value system? That kind of stuff. It feels like it's been heavy, but honestly, you're like finally starting to turn a corner here. And I do think you're going to see a reprieve briefly at the end of April, into May. But I think you're also going to start to see that you're turning a corner once Pluto is no longer squaring these places in your chart. So really, things ease up at the beginning of next year. But in the immediate next month or so, you're going to see some stuff get definitely a little bit lighter. The full moon in Libra, right? For any Cancer rising is going to be about the past, home, or family. So this is past relationship matters, home, family, where you're living, what's needing to necessarily kind of like change for you emotionally. And it can feel like you and you alone are the one who is going to be responsible for pushing forward and finally kind of breaking ties or cutting ties with the past. You may be tested a little bit where, the feeling of needing to make some changes either on the home or the professional or the work front is definitely hitting you pretty hard. But it's nothing you haven't already dealt with throughout this retrograde period. So over the last couple of months, you have seen some of the same exact squares kind of materialize, and you've been able to make your way through. The reason why I was saying like self-help, wellness, meditation, spiritual practice, gurus, is because Mars is going to trine all the stuff in the 9th house. This is like, can you get away for the weekend? Can you travel? Like, can you pick up like taking a course on meditation, or, do you go to a retreat? Something that's about releasing some of this energy so you're not getting hit with it so hard with some of the squares. And I think the full moon is about coming to some major conclusions or completions about just what actually needs to be wrapped up in the home base. It does connect to a storyline over the last 2 years of 2023 and 2024 in the fall. And now it's like you going, now I'm really ready to make the change. If nothing's happening, you're not moving, nothing's going on with your family, relationships are okay, get stuff out of your house, okay? Clear your house out because the South Node is there. It can also mean that this is a time where you're like, I'm committing to getting out of the house. I'm going to go away for the weekend, or I'm going to, make time to maybe go and do a workshop, or maybe I'm going to go to like a neighboring, city and go and visit a friend. It's about actually doing something with the energy and diffusing it. And the way to do that is either through some kind of practice, something that you're learning, or some kind of travel that's going to kind of break this up a little bit throughout the process. God, retrograde's in opposition to your 3rd house too. A lot of having to let go of things that you thought you knew, right? And, obviously Pluto, Uranus in your 3rd house, the way you communicate is just very like matter of fact. But there's shifts going on where there's big changes. That's either about your belief system, your spiritual beliefs, your cultural beliefs, the way you see the world, and you're adopting some kind of a new practice. And with all those planets in Pisces, it's about mindfulness and patience and peace, and also acceptance. And South Node Virgo is like, we can't, things are a little messy right now. Nothing's going to be perfect. We just kind of have to kind of trust our gut and our intuition. And I feel like this is such a great time to like meet a teacher, okay? Or it could be a yoga teacher. It could be a meditation teacher. It could be somebody who teaches you about like TM or mindfulness. Like somebody should have, if not, may still come in that's going to help you through this process, because the North Node, Saturn, Venus stuff is just so significant there. Anyway, I hope that's helpful for you. And watch for meeting people that could be long distance relationships as well. It's kind of dancing with Saturn. All right, we've got Amanda, Maritza, and then Corey. All right, so let's see here. So Amanda, which I believe is this one. Okay, 1, 285. And then we're looking at Ben. Good luck. Big shifts are good. All right, so let's see what Amanda says. Hey Candace, can you please pull our charts and see what the stars have in store for us? I recently got out of a long-term relationship and almost immediately met a really nice guy. It definitely wasn't planned or expected. I am taking things very slow, but we have a lot of odd synchronicities. I.e., our only children, his son and my daughter, have the exact same birthday, month, day, and year. Any insights to be mindful of? Would be so appreciated. Your readings are always so accurate and informative. Thanks again. Okay. Okay, so you're Abigail. Okay, got it. Thanks, Confessions. I was like, where is she? All right, Amanda, very interesting that you have had a solar eclipse in your 7th house, a Mercury retrograde, a Venus retrograde, and it's like, boom, there's, an ending of one relationship and another person comes in. Doors open, doors close. Also, Saturn and Neptune are going to be dancing on your descendant, which means there's strange, weird, mystical, magical, mysterious things happening with a relationship. You're like, can I see this clearly? Like, what is this? What are we doing? So on one hand, you have to take off the Neptunian, rose-colored glasses, see people for who they are, be cautious, be careful, trust things from mid-May on when things kind of settle down. And 2, you got to know that Saturn and Neptune are going to go back and forth over this particular part of your chart basically all year. So it could feel like amazing, like fairy tale romance at 29, or it could mean everything that you thought they were may not be what you thought, and there can be some confusion and some clarity issues. Okay, so just proceed with caution. That is trining your South Node and your Saturn, so you can talk a lot about having similarities and your values and all that stuff. It's also sextiling your moon, so I feel like there is a lot of support, so it's not just kind of like thrown all over the place. Anyway, just food for thought. We look at Ben's chart with your chart. Okay, so he's on the outer wheel. Venus and Leo in the 11th. His Venus trines your Mercury and Uranus. I like that. You guys have Venus opposed Venus, so you have 2 very different Venuses, but that opposition is like a strong... It's very attracting of one another, Oppositions are kind of like, oh, I like what's different, so it's not bad. He's got his Juno in your 7th house. He's got his Chiron conjunct your Chiron. You guys are about the same age. You have got his Mars on your midheaven, and his Sun is in your 10th house. So his Mars trines your, that's his chart. So his Mars opposes your Neptune. So you guys come from 2 different backgrounds or 2 kind of family bases. His moon's in Capricorn and your sun's in Capricorn. So there you go. So that's the moon-Jupiter aspect, I think, is wonderful. I really like that. I like that your moons trine each other's moon. Emotionally, you guys are going to be very grounded with Earth moons. I love that your Jupiter is conjunct his moon. He's going to feel good. You have also got... But I want to see something else here. You have Jupiter and also the Sun. That's nice. Your Pluto is close to his Saturn, so you can transform the way that he looks at parenting and maybe challenges with dating and parenting. Neptune on his descendant, not a big deal. He's got Neptune there anyway. Your Neptune opposes his Sun. So you may be a little hard to read or a little, not playing hard to get, but it's kind of hard for him to kind of pinpoint you and kind of figure you out. He's got a lot of planets either in his 12th house or on his ascendant. So he's got like a very like Piscean, Neptunian vibe. Mercury, North Node, Mars in the 12th house. Maybe he's really intuitive, but maybe he doesn't always speak what's on his mind, or he's afraid to come across as like too aggressive or too forthcoming. And with all those planets conjunct his ascendant in opposition to Neptune, it means that he oftentimes finds himself in situations where he's like chasing after, going after people that need saving, Neptune, or people who he feels have abandoned him. You can have an abandonment wound. So with your Jupiter and your Sun there, you are literally the embodiment of like the kind of person that he needs to be with. Because Capricorn is solid, they're going to be more mature, they're going to be stern. It's going to kind of break up some of the softness of the Cancer Sun, Cancer rising. And with Mercury, North Node, Mars, I think in the 12th house, like I said, this is either somebody who's very intuitive and sometimes they're a little cautious in how they communicate, or it can go the other way or it can be difficult to kind of get clarity with them because his Mercury does oppose Neptune. So it means that on one hand, he feels like people have deceived him or not been honest, and that makes him frustrated or aggravated, or he's portrayed himself in a way where he's like a chameleon, you know, Gemini, and then people kind of become emotional, or they become like reactionary, or they kind of abandon him, or, you know, they feel victimized because he sometimes can be very self-focused. Mercury, Sun, Mars, North Node on the ascendant. Just some food for thought. You know, planets in the 6th house can be about helping people and trying to be of service to them. But it can also be, I found, sometimes being critical of one another. So you have some planets there, but I feel like it's going to be about you observing some of his patterns and being like, you don't have to do that. And I like to see planets in the 7th, in the 5th, in the 11th. You guys have that. And flipping this around again, you know, he does not have technically planets in these houses, but his moon is very close to your 5th house. It would be there by whole sign. His Juno is there. And he's also got these planets on the midheaven. The only thing I would say about relationships like this, somebody who's got a lot of Cancer or Gemini right on your midheaven, is like, he's going to change the direction of where you're going with your career and your life purpose, which is good. You can talk about these things with him because he gets kind of animated and excited about, you know, where he's going and what he's doing. You guys can share in that. But also, this is like somebody who will either play a role in the direction of where your life is going, your career is going, but there can also be this feeling of being like, are they overshadowing me? Like, is it more about them than it is about me? Just food for thought. I've seen that happen with Sinistry on the midheaven. Sometimes they end up working together in some way. You guys are opposites in a lot of ways. And I think you can navigate it because, you know, you have a lot of Capricorn. He's got a Capricorn moon. He's got a lot of Gemini. You've got some Sag. You know, you guys can see different perspectives. So there's nothing here that's really kind of like worrying me. Your guys's Mars, let's see. So you have Mars in Cancer. Excuse me, you have Mars in Pisces. And it trines his Sun. Venus opposed Venus. And then his Mars trines your Pluto. So your Mars and your Venus just kind of see each other. So that means there's going to be chemistry, there's going to be compatibility. Probably the biggest frustration is that there's either going to be a lot of back and forth about your guys' beliefs and your philosophy or your culture or your education background might be very different with the planets that you have in the 3rd and the 9th. So there could be a lot of philosophical debates, not a bad thing. And probably the fact that you guys have 2 different Venuses. Venus and Leo, men in particular, they need a lot of attention. They like to be fawned over. They are like Tinkerbell. If you don't give them attention, they faint. And they can be very dramatic. And you've got Venus in Aquarius, which is pretty cool, calm, and collected. And it's also in your whole sign 6th house, which means, yes, you have that 5th house by Placid standards, but 6th house is like, how can I help you? What do you need? Da, 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 da. And like, this is somebody who, they need to be reminded sometimes they have to be a giver, not just a taker. And I say that because he's got so many planets conjunct his ascendant. He's very self-focused, right? And you're going through some transits where, you know, Saturn and Neptune are in the 7th, where other people, if they become too self-consumed or trapped in their own patterns or their own ways, it can create relational issues for you. But I don't see any red flags, personally. I like it. I like the moon, trine moon. I like the Juno 7th. I think that I would just take into consideration you're meeting somebody, you know, who's about to go through some big changes. Saturn and Neptune in the 10th, his career is going to be changing. And also it's going to be about redefining relationships. So huge changes all around. And it's about really just taking a step back and making sure that how people are portraying themselves are who they really are. Because you'll see people who will be acting like a chameleon or projecting things that they want you to see, and then you'll be like, wait a second, is that really who they are? Especially when you meet people, like if you're meeting somebody during a Mercury or a Venus retrograde in your 7th house, you can get bamboozled. You can be dating them for a while, and then all of a sudden the mask starts to come off, and then you realize ultimately down the road during another retrograde, like, oh, was this not a good idea? Not with everybody, but that does happen, right? Let me know what happens with Ben. I love that you guys have those synchronicities. That's very Neptune on your descendant. Like, whoa, is the universe trying to tell me something? I mean, at least if you guys do end up together, you guys can have one big birthday party. All right, so I've got Maritza and then Corey. What's up, Maritza? She says, hey, Candace, I'm flying out of Orlando to Honolulu on the 24th. Another one? Another one? You guys are all flying during Mars-Pluto oppositions? Okay, let's see what else she says. I'm curious if it's a good time to travel or my chart and current transits. Is it safe? Not worried about the delays, just my safety. Any advice on what to look out for while in Hawaii, good or bad? Well, Mars is your chart ruler as a Leo rising. Mars is opposing Pluto, so this is definitely one of the more tense periods of the year for you. You got to think back to what was going on in the beginning of November, what was going on at the beginning of January. These two times Mars and Pluto opposed, but I feel like this is about you going back and forth between feeling like, do I want to be home or, out playing, or do I want to be focusing on work and responsibilities? And so there's tension here, right? But we had another Aries rising going through the same thing, that the tension is actually pushing you to go, no, I'm spending the money, I'm going to do it, I'm going to go and chase my bliss, I'm getting out of the house and I'm not going to focus so much on work right now. So that could be how it's manifesting for you. Travel is more Jupiter, and you do have, in terms of transit Jupiter, Jupiter is coming into a sextile with your moon, so that's good for traveling and getting out of the house. It is also simultaneously sextiling your ascendant, same thing. Let's see what else. And then we've got the moon is going to cross Saturn, Venus, and Neptune. So one thing I think we will see with some of these transits, now that Venus is direct, Mercury is direct, is we can see storms. I don't necessarily think this is going to impact you because, depending on when you're leaving, the moon will square Jupiter. So it might mean there's just like a different flight time that you're going to be on, or maybe you're on something that's much earlier or much later than you would prefer, or it can kind of impact or kind of mess with your being in different time zones. Nothing terrible. I don't see it being not safe, but it will square Jupiter, it will square Neptune. So if you end up having a delay in a flight or something like that, it can impact your sleep schedule, but I don't see it not being safe for you to travel. However, I have to keep telling everybody this. Mars in opposition to Pluto, it's basically from this Sunday on, we're feeling it. Even though it's not in Leo yet, we're going to start feeling it with the Scorpio moon. So a couple of days on each side, Mars in opposition to Pluto does bring tension, power struggles, more issues with authority figures. It's at a 3, so it's how you're communicating and talking to people. Maybe challenges or problems with cars, flat tires. It could also be document issues. That's stuff you want to watch for. But the fact that you're going to be traveling, let's see, what did you say, the 24th or the 25th? So on the 24th, and then, let's see, I leave for Hawaii on April 24th. I leave Hawaii on the 28th and you're back on the 29th. So you leave on the 24th. So you're going to be leaving while the moon is coming into conjunction with Saturn. So that's fine. And then you're going to be coming back on, I think you said the 28th and the 29th. Okay, 28th after the new moon, 29th. 29th isn't a bad time to be traveling. It's right before we see some of the squares. And so the moon, Jupiter in the 3rd house and still some of the sextiles to your moon is fine. I think this is okay for you to be traveling. If you had been coming back one more day later, it would have been a little bit more difficult. But still, I have to tell, a Mars ruled chart, if you have Mars in opposition to Pluto, watch out for some drama with another person, watch out for some harsh words, some conflict with a friend, a little bit of intensity in terms of communication and text. Be mindful when you're driving. It's going to be more about driving. It's not going to be more about flying, because 3s is vehicles. Okay? And anything that's like sharp, hot, that kind of stuff is what you want to watch out for. Getting scraped, getting sunburned, right? So it's like, be careful while you're in the sun. But I'm not seeing anything that's going to cause any issues to you personally. I'm not seeing that. If anything, Mars coming into a square with your ascendant here. I mean, it might really come up around the full moon, but here, Mars is going to square your ascendant, and then it starts opposing Pluto. And it's also squaring Pluto. So I'd be more focused on the 14th, 15th, 16th, okay? Because it's 29, 29, 29. And maybe this is you feeling like frantically you need to get some stuff in order, you know, preparing to leaving the house, getting everything done so you can go and do what you want to do. But there could be some family or relationship friction that can be coming up actually before your trip. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Maritza. All right, we got Red Druidess. What's up, Corey? I saw your question and I was like, oh, that's a good question. All right, so Corey says, and it's going to be on the 4th. Okay. Corey says, yeah, so I just realized Pluto is going retrograde on my birthday this year. Some astrologers are saying it isn't a big deal, but I think it might be for me. I'd like some insight on what I might expect to get some advice for this transit. For me personally, I have Pluto opposed Venus natally. So it is big because when a planet is stationing retrograde or direct on your birthday, I think that's a big deal. I do. It's going to depend on exactly what time your birthday is. Where are you having your birthday? So I can look at your return really quick. And it'll be interesting to see on the solar return, okay, if it's actually direct or not. Because we know it's going to turn red around that time. Okay, come on. There we go. Philadelphia. There we go. So Pluto will be direct, but it's going to turn retrograde. So it means that it's stationing, basically. So that's better news. If it was retrograde, I would be like, eh. It definitely can mean that it would have been, and like, look, I almost said this and I should have said this. I almost wanted to say, if Pluto is stationing, I bet it's going to be on an angle. And it is. So really for me, a planet getting ready to turn retrograde means that there is this process of slowing down and reevaluating something all year, right? And also square, and it squares your natal, you know, Taurus stuff that you've got down here. So what are you reevaluating? Okay, first of all, the ascendant is at a 10. So it's going to be about a reevaluation of your career, your personal power, your body, how you present yourself, how you look. And Pluto rules the 10th house. So for Pluto to be stationing on the ascendant, it's a lot of like you going, and what am I going to do about everything? What am I changing, right? And that the change starts with me. And that, yeah, it's going to feel like it's an uphill battle because 10s are about work, but like actually once you get into the flow of it, you're going to hit about 10 months from now and you're going to go, I'm glad that I did this. Start hiking is my advice. Start writing down your goals. Also start focusing on anything that's more future oriented. Don't be focusing on the past. Don't be worrying about what has happened, what you can or cannot do. You can't change that. Go forward because that's what Aquarius is about. Start coming up and sitting down and being like, these are my goals. How do I get from point A to point B? Especially when it comes to your health, your body, your mind, communication, traveling, learning, and your career. The other thing that I would say that I think is really prominent is that this is in opposition more so closely to Mars, which is also your career, which means you're going back and forth going, what do I need to change to be more so on the same page with 7th house? Creative collaborators, with a therapist, with your marketplace, with bringing in clients or customers. And Moon Mars means that there's lots of passionate opportunities here to create, collaborate. This could be healing opportunities. You'll have things where you can heal a relationship matter. You can heal issues with a doctor. There's going to be, you know, really passionate women that are coming in that are kind of warming you up and getting you ready to take charge. Physical routine is big here. Mars is at a 7, so that's relationships. Moon is at a 10, so it's professional relationships. And it's squaring the sun. So it means that there's got to be a change happening in the way that you communicate your routines with your family, and also maybe how the dynamic is going with some of your relationships with people at home. Maybe you have some people who are really excited about what you're offering, what you have to create, and they're really kind of intrigued by what you're doing work-wise, but you can also feel like there's some people who are like partners that are acting immature, Leo, and who are being kind of selfish, and you're like, no, we've talked about this. You know, this is what I need to do, and this is what I'm working on, and this is how it changes the home dynamic, whether it's how we're spending money, what we're eating, you know, whatever. And we need to find other ways to be able to kind of navigate these changes and work together, right? That's my thought. And the fact that this is going to be happening in a square to your natal stuff then puts the Pluto transit in your 11th of friends, goals, stuff like that, in opposition to Mars and the moon, which is great. It means that part of the change means you might start a group. You might join a group, lead a group, start a collective. And obviously that's going to be squaring your Venus. So it's like, in order for me to have money, have resources, have pleasure, I got to take something that I'm sharing and I got to share it with the group. And that's going to be the challenge of, I think, Mars in opposition. It's like, I'm an artist, I'm a creative, I do this, I do that, you know, here's my business. And there's going to be times to share, and then there's going to be times to, you know, support other people. And not fun, especially if you have Pluto, if you have Venus at a 2. There is going to be some things where you're going to go, I know that I should be working with people, but like, that's not going to make me any money. You know, like you'll be like, I could go and work this craft fair, but like, why would I want to pay money and do all these things and like be with other people when like I'm better off doing it on my own? Something about navigating the way that you're spending money, making money, and your values changing, and how that intersects also with some of the people that you're around seems to be really significant this year, in my opinion, right? But yeah, the fact that it's stationing is a pretty big deal. And you're going to find that probably what will then happen is like next year, you'll see Pluto that's going to be in a more friendly angle. And I know it will be. Uranus is going to be trining Pluto. So whatever hard decisions you had to make this go around, it's actually going to bring new spontaneous opportunities for you next year, right? Look at all those planets in the second house. It's like your whole value system is shifting. Less is more. Saturn, North Node, Neptune. Not everybody is going to see things that way. Navigating around another to make changes. I need to focus more on my self goals. I keep thinking of working for myself and having a solid job. Less is more. Happy almost birthday. I look at that, I'm like, oh boy, that's going to be a lot for some of the Tauruses. My husband's going to have some of the same aspects. Somebody on one of the comments recently was like, I hope you have good astrology in your solar return. And he was like, what does that mean? And I'm like, it means a lot of people know what's going on in early May. Because you deal with it all year, you know? All right, the last person I have is Abigail. So I'm going to plug in Abigail's information, which I know you're here. Let me see. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? There we go, Abigail. Happy almost birthday, Corey. All right, 810. Okay, that's what I thought. I had her. I was not sure if that was her. All right, so we've got her, and then we're looking at the partner. So 21677. Oops. And that was 7:10 p.m. Okay. Hey, let's see, is she here? There we go. So I'm not seeing Tasmania pulling up for Australia, which I know is like in close proximity to there, but would there be some other city or something else I can plug in there? Thanks, David. Thanks for visiting. Melbourne? Okay. All right, so I've got you, I've got your partner. I'm gonna go look at your question. All right, so on and off relationship because of distance, but lots of deep connection and a strong bond. And I'm assuming you want to know what's going on here. So we've got you, Abigail, here with Cancer rising, Sun in Leo, and your moon is in Sag. When you were asking, like, is my relationship over? I remember you asking that. Pluto's dancing on your south node right now in your 7th house, which basically means that over the last year and a half, Pluto has been bringing up fears revolving around releasing or letting go of a relationship, and the back and the forth, and the maybe not on and off, but the back and forth. And that's been happening at an opposition, which means the distance. They've been going through some trying times, either personally, psychologically, or financially. And then over the last couple of months, Mars has been retrograde over Leo. So I would say just as a Cancer rising alone, Leo sun, it's been a time where it's more, what am I doing? Where am I going? What's my plan? What's my purpose? Especially as it trines your moon. It's been about focusing on your health, habits, work, routine, focusing on things that are going to make you happy or ways that you can be joyful, even in, separation from a partner. And it looks painful because not only the distance, the opposition is distance, but Mars is like, where am I going versus do I feel like I'm losing them? And it probably peaked right around the beginning of November, beginning of January, and you're going to have the last one that's going to be kind of coming up here at the end of April. So you're going to want to watch for that because there's going to be some intensity. But ends of relationships are more, I think, connected to the 6th house. And Saturn rules your 7th, and like Venus is retrograding conjunct Saturn. So it does feel like this week that feels like there's a defining moment, but maybe it's about finding ways to be able to bridge the gaps and see each other or travel. Venus conjunct Saturn in the 9th is like, are we planning a trip? Am I going to come see you? Are you going to come see me? Are we planning a relocation? These things can be coming up. And then you're also going to see Saturn will conjunct Neptune. So it does feel like a defining moment over the summer that you may feel like, am I going on my own? And you won't really know until about November and then spring of 2026. When Saturn and Neptune start opposing your Saturn and your Jupiter, like that will put you in a position where somebody's going to have to make a change or make a move, or there's going to have to be sacrifices to be made. Otherwise, you may go your separate ways, but it's not defined yet. And, 2027, 2028, you're going to start having eclipses in your 7th house, which is actually bringing you into what's going to be more relationship harmony, a different dynamic because it's an Aquarius, but still it's good for relationships. So the biggest culprit right now is Pluto on the south node, and that tells me that they are going through something. And Mars on your ascendant, or it's coming back into your ascendant, means that you're getting impatient, and also you spend a lot of time alone, and that can make you feel kind of like in your feelings. In terms of your partner, okay, they've got Saturn on your sun, so that's karmic in terms of we don't want to let each other go, but that can also be where we, hold each other back sometimes. Juno's conjunct Uranus, so that means some kind of spontaneous connection, really profound, deep connection, radically changes the way that you look at relationships. Jupiter on Chiron, healing wounds revolving around self-worth. And he's got his moon right along your south node. So Pluto's about to hit his moon and his Mars and his Mercury, which basically means like this man is psychologically, emotionally going through it. It does not matter where that is in his chart. That is a lot to deal with behind your sun. That's going to be a lot of like major changes in terms of, your home life, relationships to someone. Look at his Venus. There's been retrogrades right around his Venus and eclipses as well. So as an Aquarius sun, all of these Mars transits have been in opposition to his moon, which means he's at a distance from a woman. So we flip it around and we go, oh, look, he's a Leo rising, right? So Mars has been retrograde on his ascendant in opposition to Pluto in the 7th. Like everything is changing for him, everything. And he's reluctant to change. Saturn, Uranus, all these planets in fixed signs, my God. And he's no stranger to relationships at a distance or like a back and forth with people.
But he needs to get with the program because Pluto rules his home and it's about to hit his moon, his Mars, and his Mercury. That means either his home's about to dramatically change in the next year, some big change is going to happen where he's going to either like lose his home or a parent is going to die, like something like that's going to happen. And it's going to force him through some kind of home crisis to merge with another person, 7th house, and go, okay, let's do the damn thing. Let's just make it work. You know, am I coming to you or are you coming to me? And like, that's going to hit him like a freaking freight train at the beginning of next year when all those planets go through his 7th house. And if it's not him needing a partner, it's going to be him needing a therapist or him needing somebody to console him or somebody to kind of help him. This will happen. This will happen. This is the downside of Pluto transits, especially on a descendant. Or it'll get to a point where he's put somebody through so much that you will become Pluto and you're going to go, that's it, I've had enough. You know, and Pluto, in all fairness, it is kind of doing some stuff in your chart too. So I do think that this is about being like, okay, it's now or never. And I think that even though he's very much a relationship person, because Saturn rules his relationships and it's in the 1st, he does relationships on his terms and he keeps people at a safe distance, or he'll have excuses and reasons for why he can't quite connect with them or commit to them or be with them. Now Pluto's going to come in and it's going to go, well, we're going to put you in a position where your home life is going to change so much that now you do have to go and learn what it's like to go through this change and be in a relationship and be focused on the future, right? So it's amazing to me that you've got Pluto on your south node in the 7th and it's like partners going through a crisis. And really, it's like actually Pluto's in his 7th house, which means you guys are kind of mirroring each other. Both of you guys are going through a similar transit. Both of you guys will benefit from, you know, really talking about what are the problems? What's keeping us from being able to move forward? What are we afraid of? And he's like soul family. He's got his moon on your south node. So he feels like you guys have done this dance before. And it trines all of your 4th house. And because you have exalted Saturn in the 4th in Libra, you know, which is connected to relationships, like you don't give up on partners. Things get heavy, things get difficult, but you will always like hold space for them or wait for them or find ways to imagine, you know, how you can have a home or a life together. So you're not one to give up. But sometimes you're going to have to kind of say to him, like, you need to help me help you. Like, you need to help me help you. Like, let's not do this the hard way. Because whether it's you getting frustrated and deciding that you need space from him or there being some family crisis that goes down, like it's going to hit him like a freight train. So he needs to be open to making some of these changes. And I love that you have your Pluto conjunct his north node. I mean, I feel like this is a lot of like, okay, we're there for each other when we're going through some really heavy stuff, but like also it's not just about when things are trying, it's also about like when things can be good and not just kind of feeling like you're relying on each other like from a distance, you know? So yeah, I don't think it's the end of the world. Maybe go and learn about Pluto transit your south node. Especially because for you it's ruled by Uranus, so it's like a lot of back and forth with like a romantic partner and kind of moving from, okay, we have this connection to being like, let's actually make it legit. Let's commit to each other in a very real way, you know? So hopefully that was helpful for you, Abigail. Give me the feedback. I'm gonna want to know, especially what's going on, because there's gonna be a bit of a do-si-do between the two of you guys over the summer. That's gonna be a huge theme. When you see like Mercury retrograde at the end of July going into August, and you'll see oppositions between Pluto and the Sun, that's when you're gonna be like, okay, you know, who's gonna bend and who's gonna break. So make sure you come back and leave me a comment. I'd love to hear what happens. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys. It was busy as expected during a full moon. So for those of you guys who hung out with me, thank you. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, like the stream. You want to see more of my videos? Come hang out with me on Fridays. I'm here every Friday. We'll be here next week for tarot. 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time is when I'm here, but I know we've got people all over the world. Definitely subscribe so you can see when we post the links so you guys can get a reading next time, or consider joining my memberships. I'm going to be back on Sunday for Astro Weather. We're talking about Mars going back into Leo. If you guys have any interest in some of my products, some of my courses, you want to book a one-on-one reading with me, I am busy. I'm booking now in August and September. Click the links below, go to beyondtheveiltarot.com, or follow me on X at BTVAstro. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you all very soon. Enjoy this full moon in Libra. Take care.